Ah, what music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this. When we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last.
There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Oh, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Oh, he can drive. He can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do. It's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing
That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own. Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Hello folks, you join us on the dawn of a new season of Grand Prix racing. We are at Cleveland at the Burke Lakefront Airport, ready for the first race of the 1991 Grand Prix racing season. And after last year's encounter, which saw the new boy Mika Hakkinen become a very unexpected but very deserving world champion, now we are ready for a new encounter as 24 teams and 48 drivers take on the Grand Prix racing scene. Before we get started with coverage of pre-qualifying, let's introduce you to the runners and riders for this season. For the 1991 season, Mika Hakkinen is joined at Brabham by Alain Prost as the team sets off into the distance with Ilmor engines and renewed hopes. Over at McLaren, Gerhard Berger remains and is joined by the Italian stallion Alessandro Nannini as the squad hopes to return to the top of the podium. Over at Tyrrell, the Red Bull partnership is growing in stature. Jean Alesi and Heinz-Harald Frentzen return and are hopeful to win more races. Porsche has scrapped its works team plans and joined forces with Williams. Ayrton Senna has been brought in from McLaren to lead the charge beside Thierry Boutsen. At Benetton it's all changed too. Apple comes in as the main sponsor with Porsche customer engines, Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell. Over at Lotus, it's experience that drives the team forward. Derek Warwick partners Michele Alboreto, whilst Renault Power should move them up the grid. It was a nightmare season in 1990 for Ferrari, but with Nigel Mansell now joined by German hotshot Michael Schumacher, it could be a renaissance. Over at Ligier, Riccardo Patrese adds experience to the outfit, while up-and-comer Eddie Irvine is hoping to add points. Arrows has teamed up with BMW for 1991 and captured the services of three-time champion Nelson Piquet beside Adrian Fernandez. And over at Lola, it could be a very interesting season for Stefano Modena and Mauricio Gugelmin, along with Ferrari engines. Those are the 10 teams guaranteed to qualify. Now come the pre-qualifiers. Minardi are back with Pierluigi Martini, Eric Comas and Cosworth engines. The Monteverdi team will also use Cosworth engines, rebadged as Vions. JJ Leto and Ivan Capelli will head their driving strength. Coloni will use Honda engines, with Andrea De Cesaris partnering alongside the Brazilian talent Roberto Moreno. There's a change in management at Dallara, but not a change in style. An all-British lineup, Johnny Herbert and Damon Hill, son of two-time world champion Graham. Reynard returned for a second season, although there's already rumours they may not be around for long in their current guise, and it's an all-Italian squad, Nicola Larini and Emanuele Pirro. Zach Speed are back in business with BMW Power, Joachim Winkelhock and Irish renegade Tommy Byrne. High ambitions and a playful exterior at Fonmetal put Martin Donnelly alongside the Austrian Roland Ratzenberger. Ford have last minute bought into the Eurobrun team, and it's a factory effort. Eddie Cheever of America lines up beside Roberto Guerrero. It's an all-Japanese affair at Leighton House, with Honda engines, Aguri Suzuki and Ukyo Katayama, and there are more plans on the way. Formula 3000 champions Jordan finally enter Formula 1, with Fabrizio Barbazza and Carl Wendlinger leading the charge for now. Whilst over in Italy, Modena have partnered up with alcohol giants Martini, poached the services of Canadian IndyCar star Paul Tracy to partner Eric Bernard. AGS have done a deal with power giants Duracell, as Hideki Noda of Japan and Laurent Aiello of France come into this all-new look squad. Somehow, Life have returned to the grid for 91, although some are not sure how. Bruno Giacomelli will partner the new American star Cheryl Glass. And finally, Real have teamed up with Ilmore as their customers, with Alan McNish and Rickard Rydell hoping to climb the field. So that's 14 teams trying to make it into the Grand Prix grid alongside the top 10 teams from 1990. So we're going to go straight to pre-qualifying, and it's already turning out to be a very exciting weekend from the front end of the grid. So a very busy race ahead of us, 50 laps of the Grand Prix of Cleveland for the pre-qualifying drivers. Damon Hill bagging the pole position for Dallara alongside Aguri Suzuki. Johnny Herbert in the second, Dallara is third, with Carl Wendlinger in the Jordan in P4 of the grid. Then it's Ukyo Katayama alongside Eddie Cheever, with Fabrizio Barbazza and Roberto Moreno sharing the fourth row of the starting grid. Then it's Joe Winkelhock and Nicola Larini who round out the top 10. Andrea De Cesaris is 11th on the grid from Alan McNish in the Real. Then it's Emanuele Pirro and Rickard Rydell. And then Eric Comas is alongside the Monteverde of JJ Leto. Roberto Guerrero is beside Tommy Byrne. Lauren Aiello and Ivan Capelli round out the top 10 rows. Then Roland Ratzenberger is beside Martin Donnelly in P22, with Eric Bernard, Pierluigi Martini, Paul Tracy and Hideki Noda rounding out the field. So it is going to be a truly sensational battle ahead of us then. 50 laps of the course, should take just under an hour or so. And this is going to be a very intriguing battle. I'm Jake Sanson, your race commentator. Hope you're all ready for an exciting battle to begin the 1991 season. Remember, the first 3 teams past the finish line will be the ones that progress through to the US Grand Prix. We're under starters' orders. Good start originally then from our pulse entertainment. Oh my goodness, Johnny Herbert's already lost 2 places on the run of the first corner. Wendlinger's making a good charge forward, so is Aguri Suzuki. In fact, Suzuki trying to get into third position. Oh, there looks like there's been problems further back. Definitely looked like there's been some damage. Oh, and that's the Leighton House of Aguri Suzuki going off the road. We're going to take another look back at that and see how Suzuki had a real difficult start. Great start from Wendlinger in the Jordan, though. And even his teammate Barbazza's having a good go of it down into turn 1. A big launch forward from Nicola Larini in the Reynard. And Suzuki, look, he just drifted wide. I'm not entirely sure whether there was any contact to force that before, but Larini is all the way up at a 4th position in the Reynard. Now we're going to have another look at the start further back and see who it was that took the damage into turn 1. Johnny Herbert not getting a great start. Cheever not getting a bad one. Moreno in the Coloni. See, he's getting a nerf from behind. I think it's Comas who's in the middle of all of that, having some difficulties in the Minardi, so already some tough starts. And Suzuki's going to lose out as we pick it up with live pictures once again. That's Johnny Herbert in the Dallara getting through, but there is the son of 2-time Formula 1 world champion Graham Hill. That is Damon Hill. Having a good go of it in the Dallara as we ride on board with Roberto Moreno. That is Joe Winkelhock. Now, what's happened to Moreno? We need to have a look back as Moreno is trying to have a go up the inside of Joe Winkelhock. He's made his way through, has he? No, he had to bail out of it. So I wonder if there was a slight misfire in the Honda engine of the San Carlo Coloni. Well, we're going to have a look at it. So Moreno tucked up behind Winkelhock. Oh, and round the outside, that's his teammate, De Cesaris, having a little bit of a run-wide moment in front of Pirro, McNish and Comas. So already an interesting start to the 1991 season as Pirro in the Reynard runs very solid. There's the Modena of Eric Bernard. The Modena Lamborghini, as it's known. Damon Hill lapping the circuit in under a minute. You can do that here at Cleveland. And Nicola Larini in the Reynard trying to go for third position already. On the inside of Wendlinger, he's there, but on the outside, Wendlinger has got the better line. And so Larini trying to thwart the attack of Johnny Herbert with Suzuki and Cheever very much in the chase. So here's Herbert having a go up the inside to try and make the move on the inside of Nicola Larini. Oh, and he's lost it! Johnny Herbert's lost it. Oh, big disaster for the Dallara. Oh, and he's come back on the circuit and hit one of the Zach speeds. I think that's Winkelhock. So we're going to have to take another look at that. Was there contact? No, there wasn't. Johnny just got on the grass trying to avoid collisions with Larini. And then coming back onto the circuit, look, he gets hit by Winkelhock. Now, I really want to see that again from Winkelhock's point of view. Now, was there anything he could have done to avoid that? JJ Leto is in the pits with damage, as is Laurel Aiello. So those two are having problems. And look, Herbert comes back onto the circuit right in front of Winkelhock. There's nothing that the German can do to avoid him. So that was a little bit of a mistake from Johnny Herbert on the rejoin. Obviously, he was quite desperate not to lose too many positions, but I'm afraid he has savaged the front nose cone of Joe Winkelhock's car in the attempt to try and get going again. So Johnny Herbert, oh, and that's Martini! Martini in the Minardi has dropped it.
What a crazy start to this first pre-qualifying race. Now, did Martini make contact with anybody? He's pretty much on his own there into the left-hander. And no, he's just carried too much speed and has thrown it away on his own. So that's a big mistake from Pierluigi Martini. Unfortunately, the Minardi driver is now off the road as well, trying to get the car recovered once again, and he has managed to do so, but that's a big mistake from Pierluigi Martini. So, Damon Hill in the Dallara is your leader, Katayama in the Leighton House in second, and then it is Wendlinger in the Jordan Ferrari, this new car for 1991. The team that stepped up from Formula 3000, they've run various good quality drivers, including the man who is leading the race, Damon Hill. Actually was under the Eddie Jordan wing. He's tested for Williams as well, of course. Wendlinger, the Austrian, who was part of the Mercedes sports car program for a portion of last year. Very talented competitor, as Winkelhock has now made his way into the pits to repair that front nose cone as we ride on board with Comas. That's one of the Monteverdis. No, sorry, that's one of the Reals in front. So that could be the fast-starting Alan McNish. His teammate Rydell is all the way up in 8th place. So the Real with the Ilmor engine definitely starting this Grand Prix very well. But then that Ilmor engine is based largely on the Mercedes unit that is currently used in the World Sports Car Championship by the Sauber operation. And there are rumours that Mercedes may be having a think about getting... Oh, Larini's slowing! Larini's slowing in 4th place! Gearbox failure! That is so cruel. He made a fantastic start, Nicola Larini. And unfortunately, the Reynard with its Renault engine, gearbox problems ending the race barely before it's begun. And so Nicola Larini will never know just how well he could have done in this race. That's very unfortunate indeed for the Italian. Look at Wendlinger all over the back of Katayama. As we look at Roberto Guerrero. So Roberto Guerrero is in the new Eurobrum team. I say new Eurobrum team because, of course, they are still the team from old, but they've been rebooted for 1991, and Ford have actually bought into the team, and they are planning a possible takeover bid, apparently. But Ford have obviously got a works operation with Eurobrum. It's going to take them a bit of time to get up to speed because they are having to go in through the pre-qualifying route. But Ford said they wanted a development project in Formula 1, and by goodness, they've got one now. So this is Guerrero under pressure from Ivan Capelli. We're already on lap 5. That shows you how quick the laps go here at Cleveland. The circuit does take less than a minute to negotiate in these 1991 Formula 1 cars. Roberto Guerrero all over the back of Comas, although he has lost a bit of ground to him. He's trying to shake off Capelli in the Monteverdi as well. Wendlinger has caught back up to Katayama. This could be the opportunity. He's got him in the slipstream, and Katayama's going to try and do everything he can to keep Wendlinger at bay. Wendlinger's got the run, though, down to the chicane. Is he going to get through? No, he's not. Katayama resists. So the Japanese driver hangs on to second position for the time being. So here's Comas coming towards us with Guerrero, Capelli, and the Irishman Tommy Byrne in tow. Oh, goodness me. Comas was actually running those strips on the pit lane entry. Now, those are not actually cones. They are a sort of polycarbonate vertical triangle that you can run over, but they don't do a massive amount of damage to the cars. What it does show is that the drivers are pushing particularly hard in their attempt to try and move up the order. Katayama again resisting from Wendlinger, as Martin Donnelly is going to battle. He's got Ratzenberger, his teammate, in front of him, and he's got the new Canadian driver in Formula 1, Paul Tracy, just in behind him in the Modena Lamborghini, which has now got a little bit of support from Martini, the drinks brand. Here's Wendlinger, back on the inside of Katayama again. Attempt number 2, and this time he's done it. So Karl Wendlinger, the Austrian, gets into second place. That's not good news for Katayama, because now he's got his teammate Aguri Suzuki all over the back of him. And there goes Suzuki, storming up the inside to try and get into third. Katayama around the outside. Suzuki actually has to give best to him. Well, Katayama determined not to let anybody else get through, and look at how much time Katayama's lost to the race leader Damon Hill. He's already pulled 11 seconds clear in less than 7 laps. So that is quite extraordinary, the kind of pace that Katayama was giving away. But clearly the Leighton House Honda driver, either on a very heavy fuel strategy or just not getting up to speed at the moment. We ride on board with Damon Hill in the Converse Dallara, working its way around the course, having a great run. And he's already coming up to lap JJ Leto. But that, of course, is partially down to the fact that Leto had to pit for crash damage, as did Winkelhock, and as did one of the AGS cars that is just up the road there with its new backing from the battery-powered Duracells. Bernard all over the back of one of the Zach Speeds. That's Tommy Byrne in front of him. Check out the wheel-to-wheel action in 1991 already between the pre-qualifiers. It used to be just a qualifying session back in 1989 in terms of lap times, but the fans wanted a little bit more racing action, and so this 50% distance race format was invented for 1990, and it's continuing on into 1991. So Damon Hill leads. Carl Wendlinger is 10.5 seconds back, and that's Rydell. Rydell spins the Real. Now, can he get back on the circuit any quicker than the Minardi? Oh, he's had to give best. The thing is, you can't just storm back onto the circuit. You have to wait until the field has gone through. Otherwise, it's an unsafe rejoin. And Rickard Rydell has thrown away a points finish. That's a real shame. I say points finish, it's inverted commas, because you don't score points as such in pre-qualifying. The only way to get through and score Constructors' Championship points is to get into the Grand Prix. Although there is going to be a Rookie of the Year prize handed out in the Grand Prix World Championship, so it is going to be a tough one for all of the youngsters coming up the ranks. But Damon Hill is your race leader at the moment here in pre-qualifying for the US Grand Prix at Cleveland. Fabulous battle. Damon Hill in the Dallara out in front, and that is one of the AGS cars up the road in front of him. That's the 45 car, so that has got to be the second driver. Hideki Noda is just outside the top 15. So that's obviously got to be the second of the two AGS cars that is trying to get itself up to speed at this moment in time. That is Laurent Aiello, the Frenchman. Right on the back, this is Minardi versus Real. So this is Eric Comas trying to get his way through in behind Alan McNish as they duel for 10th position. And still they duel. Up to the pit lane exit, round the outside. No, Comas can't throw that in the final chicane. So Damon Hill leading Wendlinger, then Katayama, Suzuki, and the second Jordan of Barbatza. Then it's Chiva in the Eurobrun, and he's in front of Moreno, De Cesaris, Pirro, and McNish. Johnny Herbert having a bit of a tough time working his way back through the pack. So this is a bit of a tough one for Johnny Herbert, trying to recover. But obviously oh, look at Katayama. Now he's got Suzuki and Barbatza behind him. That's going to be a tough one. Suzuki trying to get into the slipstream. And look at Barbatza. He wants to try and take both of the Leighton houses in one move. Is Barbatza going to get that done? Oh, very brave from Barbatza. And he's actually in risk of losing the position to Chiva in the Eurobrun Ford behind him. Moreno coming up in the Coloni. And De Cesaris there as well in 8th place. My goodness, that was a close run thing for Barbatza. He almost went into 3rd position there for the Jordan team. That would have been a superb move. So Katayama still having a solid run of it, but losing a lot of time. And that's Aiello. Aiello in the Duracell AGS is out of this race. He's got an engine problem by the look of it. Oh dear, and he's parked the car. Ay-yi-yi! That is the final right-hander before the chicane, and he is very lucky indeed that the leaders did not collect him as he came through. Well, Laurent Aiello, I'm afraid, is out of the race for the AGS Judd. And so he's not going any further in this one. Right, Katayama, 3rd position, still trying to shake off his own teammate, Aguri Suzuki. They're running side by side, as you can see. And still Suzuki can't get by. Then it's Barbatza's Jordan, Chiva's Eurobrun, and then the two Colonis of Andrea De Cesaris and Roberto Moreno. Barbatza trying his luck on Suzuki once more. Into the right-hander, the first corner. It's a tough one to get right, actually. There are about 3 or 4 differing racing lines to take. And Damon Hill. Now, let's look at the fuel strategies. Well, Damon Hill's on a light fuel load. Winkelhock's going a long way in after his trip to the pits. What about Wendlinger? He's on a light fuel load as well. And that's Katayama. He's going through all the way to the end by the look of it. Now, this is a new rule that's been brought in for pre-qualifying for 1991. Teams can choose to do a quick splash and dash stop, or try and fill the tank to the brim and see if the drivers can get to the end without making a pit stop. You are allowed to do that in 1991. You weren't in 1990, but it's being test run for the 1991 season. And so far, it's already proving to be quite a tough one for Katayama, who is not intending to make a pit stop. And as a result, look at the time he's lost. 21 seconds already to Damon Hill in the Dallara. And we haven't even got to half distance yet in this pre-qualifying encounter. Oh, it's getting a little bit scrappy for 3rd position downwards. De Cesaris nearly tripping over Chiva as they went through the first corner. A very intriguing situation at the moment as the cars continue to duel for those positions. And let's not forget, the third best team across the line is the one that gets in with currently Dallara and Jordan. So obviously Eurobrun and Coloni both want to try and get their cars past the Leighton-House pair. There's Martini in the Minardi after his earlier spin. He's now caught up to the back of Hideki Noda in the AGS. So Martini is trying to make up for lost time. As Carl Wendlinger is on his own in second place, 11 seconds behind Hill, but 11 seconds clear of Katayama. He's just lapped Joe Winkelhock in the Zach Speed. With that BMW engine, it's not quite as relentlessly powerful as BMW were trying to suggest in pre-season testing. They've still got a little bit of work to do with that BMW unit. Of course, they haven't been in Formula One for a fair while. Other than last year, of course, as they were former partners with the Brabham team. Of course, Brabham now, you'll see in the Grand Prix later, have Ilmor engines for 1991. And there's Bernard. Oh, he can't quite keep Johnny Herbert at bay. And there's contact. Now, that was Herbert just getting a little bit of a rub there from one of the two Fonmatals. Now, the Fonmatals are 17th and 18th at the moment, and that's Leto slowing. Leto's got a busted engine, I'm afraid. So, JJ Leto parking the Monteverdi, and the car has actually caught fire. That's not good. Katayama still holding up his teammate Suzuki. Goodness me. And look at that fuel gauge. You can see he's going to try and go all the way to the end of the race without making a stop. Suzuki, however, is going to be in the next few laps. And Barbazza is right behind us as well, so we need to try and make this strategy work. Surely the Leighton House team need to get communicating to Katayama to say let Suzuki through. But Katayama is not playing ball here. This is great news for Barbazza. And you can see that Chiva, Moreno, De Cesaris, they're all on light fuel loads as well. There's Emanuele Pirro in the second of the Reynards. He's going all the way to the end, and so is McNish in the Real. So there's going to be quite a few teams here that are going to try and go through. Damon Hill pits. Now, Damon Hill pits. Now, this is going to be, I would say, around 8 or 9 seconds for the pit stop. So let's see how it goes. And it's about 9.9. There we go. That's about what we expected it to be, because Damon Hill is going to try and go to the end of the race now. So Katayama is going to go past the pits, is he? Into second position. Oh no, there is Damon Hill in the Dallara, so he's going to beat him out. No, he's not! Katayama's got him. Now, this is not good news for Damon Hill. He needs to get back past Katayama pretty quickly, because we've seen how desperately Katayama has been holding up the rest of the field. And now Damon Hill is in real danger here if he stays behind Katayama for too long, because Katayama's going to try and go the whole way. But Damon Hill is on fresher tyres, about the same fuel load though. So Katayama still trying to hold things up. Here's Capelli trying to go over the inside of Guerrero. Not going to happen. Roberto Guerrero holds on to it. Oh, Emanuele Pirro pushing the Reynard big time. And now Damon Hill is going wheel to wheel with Katayama, trying to get back in a second place. Can he outbrake the Leighton House round the outside? No, he can't. Same problem as before. So Katayama is holding on to this for dear life. No way is he going to have an easy overtake. And now an opportunity for Suzuki. Can he get through? No, he can't. So Damon Hill, resolute, holding on to third position and actually chopping across the nose there, almost physically, on a Goody Suzuki. Here is Damon Hill, looking back at his race helmet, very similar in design to his late father, who of course also won the Indy 500 and the Le Mans 24 Hours in his career, the only man ever to win the Triple Crown, as Hideki Noda tries to get past one of the Modena Lambos. They're already affectionately being called Team Lamborghini. I'm fairly sure they are the only team in the entire grid this year with Lamborghini engines. And apparently the Italian supercar giant wants to go full time, although they've partnered up with Modena to start the ball rolling. So Damon Hill works his way through the chicane. On the turn again, Ukyo Katayama trying to push his way forward. That's Tommy Byrne. Tommy Byrne trying to get a little bit further away from Johnny Herbert, who's got Roland Ratzenberger right in behind him. And down the back straight, you can see Johnny Herbert's got good speed. Is that going to be enough to sail him past Byrne? Well, it is into the braking zone, but Byrne has got the inside line. Oh, Herbert got him. Did he? No, Herbert's coming to the pits. I do apologise. So Herbert pitted at the same time there. But look at Damon Hill really struggling. He's lost a good 5 seconds to Wendlinger being sat behind the Leighton House. This is great news for Carl Wendlinger and the New Jordan team. There is the Austrian. Stretching away, out in front. looking pretty comfortable, but he's got a pit stop of his own to take, don't forget. And now Damon Hill's going to make his move on the inside of Katayama. This is for second place. Can he commit? Can he commit? He dives in on the inside. Is that going to be enough to get through? Yes, it is. So Damon Hill is into second. He manages to get past Katayama. And if I know the Dalara's speed, he's not going to look back from that. And also up the inside, Suzuki. Oh, he still can't get through. And that's a little bit of a twitch there from Barbatza and Moreno dueling away. But Ukyo Katayama is causing a real headache for the Leighton House team here. He will not let his teammate through. So it's clear that there are no team orders within that squad, but Katayama is going to be rubbing a few people in the team up the wrong way here. That's Wendlinger lapping back markers. He's got to be careful lapping back markers. Oh, that's Pirro! Pirro's gone off. Now, why has Pirro gone off? Because that didn't look like an unforced error. Let's have a look at it. Is he right on board? Oh, he's got a puncture. It's the right front. So the right front has gone. The tyre just delaminates. And it throws Emanuele Pirro off the road. And I think he's well aware of the fact that he's not going to be able to get the car back to the pits. So I'm afraid, before we've even reached lap 25, the half-distance mark in pre-qualifying, it looks to me as though both the Reynards are out of this race. That's really unfortunate, and team boss Phil Kinch is not going to be happy. But certainly Larini and Pirro could have got a lot out of this race. Suzuki pits, and so does Barbatza. So Suzuki and Barbatza have decided to forget about Katayama for the moment. They've both managed to make their pit stops, but they will lose a lot of time to the likes of Hill and Wendlinger, having been stuck behind the Leighton House Honda of Ukyo Katayama for quite a long time. Here's Bernard dueling away with Winkelhock and Johnny Herbert. So still they battle away. Johnny Herbert and Winkelhock, of course, trying to make recoveries. That is Bernard, actually. It's not... what did I say it was before? Well, I did say it was the Modena, but I didn't say which one. But it's Bernard rather than Paul Tracy, the Canadian. Is into the pits comes Wendlinger. And Wendlinger comes into the pits. Now, the Jordan being in pit lane is quite an important one. So obviously we need to see where he filters out in relation to Damon and also in relation to Ukyo Katayama. Well, Damon Hill's already gone through. So Damon Hill's got through no problem, and so has Katayama. So Katayama through to second place. We obviously had the pit stops already for Suzuki and Barbatza, so they've gone. De Cesaris is there in third place in the Coloni, as Hideki Noda tries to make his bid for Paul Tracy. That's the other thing about this circuit. It's about half a minute to come in and go out of the pit stops again, and it takes less than a minute to go around the circuit. So when you make a pit stop, you drop quite a long way down the field, but then obviously when the other drivers come in, they will have the same amount of time lost, so it becomes a little bit of a duel. As into the pits is going to come Hideki Noda. So Noda briefly moves into 12th position, but then obviously drops straight back behind Paul Tracy again. As the AGS with its Judd engines and Duracell power, very nearly, comes into the pits. Moreno has had his pit stop as well, and he's rejoined behind the Zap speed of Tommy Byrne. So Tommy Byrne is actually now running in P6, and into the pits comes De Cesaris in the Coloni. Now we're going to follow his pit stop from the start. So again, you're looking at about a 9-second pit stop. I would say about 9.5 would do for the Coloni team. And it looks like it's going to be quicker than that. Look at that, 8.8 seconds. That's a very good stop. Oh, we've got Suzuki trying to work his way around the outside of Tommy Byrne. And he's managed that just about, but Byrne gets him back again on the exit. So Moreno has got past both of them. We're on board with Barbatza going into the first hairpin. As Barbatza tries his best to stay out of trouble. I think he had Chiva to his right there, so he had to be very careful to give him a wide enough space, but also hang on to the position. That's the tough nature of this first corner here on the Burke Lakefront Airport. You've got a lot of options in terms of fast lines. So an interesting battle still to come. Hill, Katayama, Wendlinger. McNish is up to 4th place as a result of the pit stops. De Cesaris in P5, then Moreno, Suzuki, Byrne, Barbatza, and Chiva. Oh, and that's Damon Hill! Damon Hill spins! The race leader, Damon Hill, has spun! Oh my goodness, that is a big moment in this race, and that surely is going to cost Dallara any chance of the win. And that's going to promote Honda and Leighton House into the lead. Now, it looks to me as though Damon actually lost that on his own. I don't think there was any contact. Now, this is the kind of characteristic we saw from Damon Hill in Formula 3000 before. He was very, very good at taking the lead and disappearing, but then either something went wrong with the car or there would be a mistake. Whatever it was, Damon Hill has spun it from the lead here in Cleveland, and that is an absolute disaster. It promotes Katayama to the lead, it promotes Wendlinger to second, and I think it could even promote McNish into third position in the Real. And considering that McNish is going to try and go the whole distance without a pit stop, that is an incredibly brave turn of events. Oh, well, there is McNish. And Damon, look, he's rejoined in third place. So he's just managed to get back on the road in front of the Real. So Dallara are not out of this yet. Even if they don't win the race, the top 3 teams are the ones that go through. So it's Leighton House Honda currently leading, then Jordan Ferrari, then it's Dallara Ferrari. So those are the 3 teams looking likely to progress through. But Ukyo Katayama, the man who will not pit, is still out there in the lead of the race. Now, he's been very fortunate because Wendlinger got held up a lot in the early stages and Damon Hill has just spun out of the lead. But it's still the case that Leighton House Honda have got one of their cars up in the lead of the race. The other one, Aguri Suzuki, is down in P7. And I don't think he'll be very happy with his teammate at all. He could have been a lot higher in the race had it not been for his teammate holding him up for as long as he was. But that's going to be a conversation for later, I dare say. Gomez trying to come around the outside, and he hasn't made that work to get past Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian, who's already taking on Ivan Capelli of the Monteverdi Vaillant team. I should point out that that is the name of the engine brand, Vaillant. They've taken it from the famous comic books Michel Vaillant, which is very big here in motor racing circles, and obviously very big in France. But the actual engine is a Cosworth engine, but the Monteverdi team are very passionate, and they decided to rebadge the engines as Vaillants to give a sort of present. Look at this, 3 wide, the Colonis dueling away. Goodness me, the Colonis are actually dueling away here with Alan McNish. And that's a problem. That's Damon Hill. That's Damon Hill. The car is on fire. Well, big disaster, big drama. And I'm afraid the Dallara is not going to go any further in this race after all. So maybe it was some oil that threw Damon Hill off the road in the first place. Oh, and McNish almost sideswipes him as he comes off the road. Well, maybe that was what pitched Damon Hill into a spin in the first place then. But certainly a massive engine failure. And I'm afraid Dallara, with Johnny Herbert outside the top 15 at this stage, are not going to go through to the Grand Prix. What a disappointment for them. So Ivan Capelli is now up into the top 10, and Paul Tracy in the Modena is up into 11th place. But that's a bitter pill to swallow for Damon Hill and the Converse Dallara squad. There is the Marshal just helping Damon Hill's car off to the sidelines as we look at Hideki Noda in the AGS. There's De Cesaris dueling away with McNish and Suzuki. Oh, it's getting very tight indeed. As Suzuki now is obviously up to 5th position as a result of all of this, but McNish is another driver that is basically going to go the whole distance without making a stop. And Wendlinger has caught up to Katayama, I notice, as well. So Wendlinger has been chipping away at the race leader, Ukyo Katayama, who, of course, is still on older tyres than Wendlinger, even if they're on similar fuel loads. Wendlinger's got the fresher rubber. There you can see still the clean-up job for the Dallara team, and a very unhappy Damon Hill, who was leading when those troubles started. So it's a bitter disappointment indeed for the team. And I know that their young American teammate, who is a test driver, Brian Herter, who is out here next week racing in the Barber Pro Dodge series, was rather hoping for an opportunity. How on earth Brian Herter's got himself a test deal at the age of 20 with very little single-seater experience at all, I don't know. Clearly he knows somebody in high places, but Paul Tracy, trying to get his move done, gets out of the way of the battle up front. And there's Winkelhock making, this is the overtake on Paul Tracy, so Winkelhock gets through on the young Canadian. That's a nice move. No! Tracy comes back at him. Oh, and there's a little bit of nudging there. So Bernard gets a little bit of a love tap from one of the Fon Metals. I think that was Martin Donnelly. Just getting a little bit of a sense of urgency here now. And that's Wendlinger in the lead. I do apologise, I missed that. So Wendlinger is through past Katayama and has taken the lead. So Karl Wendlinger in the Jordan, the Austrian, is now in the lead of the race here. And with less than half of it still to go, it looks good for the Jordan Ferrari out in front. So a very solid start to proceedings. His teammate comes into the pits. So So Fabrizio Barbazza went a little bit further into the race than several of his counterparts. But the battle is still going strong. A really exciting charge at the moment for Carl Wendlinger, who is having a great run. So this is fascinating stuff. We're getting some messages through, which is great to see. But some fantastic battles going on. Oh, that's Tommy Byrne running in P7 at the moment. The Irishman, who is a bit of a rebel by all accounts. Had a great test run for McLaren years ago, but when Ron Dennis was in charge of the team, and he said there's no way I'm ever putting him in my car. But team boss at Zach Speed, Gemma Dixon, decided to give him a go, and it turns out it's quite a decent moment actually, because Tommy Byrne is starting to prove himself here, along with Eddie Cheever, running side by side. And can Cheever get through? No, he can't. So Tommy Byrne keeping himself nicely in position there. So absolutely sensational as the battle continues. But a really exciting charge as the contenders continue to go. So still the battle's raging on. Fabrizio Barbazza, who's had some kind of problem and dropped all the way down the field. He's now a lap behind his teammate. He was up there in the top 8. I wonder if he had some kind of electrical difficulty. So this is a really exciting charge forward as the contenders move forward. There's Cheever trying to get his move on the inside of Tommy Byrne. And here's Roberto Guerrero. So Roberto Guerrero, part of the new Ford-inspired Eurobrun team. And Ford apparently really want to take this team places in 1992. There's even talk of a bit of a takeover bid, but obviously that's the wild rumour mill running around the paddock here in Cleveland. Interesting messages coming through. Apparently Katayama is possibly the worst team player in this field. Oh, Wendlinger! Now, that's a bit of an issue. He lost a bit of ground there. Has he got a problem? Well, not according to his dash. It just looked like he was tripping over the field there a little bit. So Barbazza still running fairly strongly behind his teammate, but they appear to be helping each other to run further forward now. So still the battles rage on. Barbazza just tucking in behind his teammate there, Wendlinger. Johnny Herbert on the recovery path, now trying to get through on the inside of Martin Donnelly, and it hasn't worked out. In fact, he almost tripped over the Minardi, I think that is, of Pierluigi Martini, who's trying to work his way forward. So Roberto Moreno in the Coloni, running in P5. A very solid effort so far from the Coloni team. They decided to just fuel the cars up to the brim and go as long as possible. I think Moreno was the one who decided to make a pit stop. De Cesaris stayed out. And so De Cesaris is actually running in third position. But then he is a very experienced driver, Andrea De Cesaris. He has over a decade of Formula One experience under his belt. Roberto Moreno has been in and out of various teams through the last few seasons. But it's good to see that the Brazilian now has a full-time ride at Coloni. So out of the final turn and on the main straight. Still a good solid battle going on as Katayama running. Now take a look at the lap times that we're currently seeing from drivers. Wendlinger is going about a second a lap quicker than Katayama. That's what running on older tyres is actually doing for Katayama's pace. And look, De Cesaris is going considerably faster as Barbazza is now losing out there to one of the Fonmatals. So I think Donnelly has made the overtaking move. Barbazza coming back at it. No, that's Ratzenberger in fact. So Ratzenberger has come through much stronger on this part of the course. Here's Rickard Rydell in the Real. He needs to get out of the way. And the Swede is currently causing a little bit of an issue for Wendlinger, but he does get out of the way in good time. And of course, Rickard Rydell, part of this new Mock Swede operation, as it's known, because they have sponsorship from the furniture giants IKEA. And they have a Swedish team principal as well in Marcus Johansson, so this could end up turning into something. Oh, the Moderners trying not to trip over each other, and that's Barbazza. Sorry, no, that's Wendlinger. That's the race leader, nearly tripping over the two Moderners. So they've got to be really careful there that they don't hold up the race leader. Still, they battle on. Through the S's. Eddie Cheever running a very solid race here, the American, as he duels with Tommy Byrne. Still these two. It's great to see Tommy Byrne actually getting a Formula One chance. He may not be everybody's friend in the paddock, but in terms of his talent, Eddie Jordan is quoted as saying he is the greatest racing driver on the planet, which is a very high amount of praise from the Eddie Jordan racing man. So there is Andrea De Cesaris. Still going strong in third position. He's been very consistent for a change, is Andrea De Cesaris. He earned a very unkind nickname in his middle years. He was known as De Crasheris because he did have a lot of problems, but certainly with Coloni they seem to have straightened it out as Eric Bernard in the Modena goes off. Oh, and he was hit. He was hit as he rejoined there. Now let's have another look at it. So Bernard was going to try and make a move on his teammate Paul Tracy. Now who was it that hit him? Was that one of the Jordans? Well, that might have been the race leader Wendlinger just nudging him aside and getting him out of the way. Now this is going to be worth having another look at. It's Katayama we were looking at in second place. And yes, it was Wendlinger. And Barbatza then hits him big time. So Wendlinger nudged him wide. Barbatza actually accidentally drove into him. So the Jordans definitely finding their way through. Oh, that's Guerrero. That's the Eurobrunt. That's very disappointing. Looks like they've got a puncture. And Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian, is going to be the next retirement from this pre-qualifying encounter. That's a real shame. Remember, it's the top 3 teams across the line that make it through to the Grand Prix. And I'm afraid Roberto Guerrero is now out of the race. So Eurobrunt have now lost, I'm afraid, one of their cars. Oh, somebody's in trouble. There's smoke coming out of the back of somebody on the far side. I didn't quite see who that was, but certainly... Oh, yeah, you can see it now. Somebody's in trouble. It's Ricard Rydell in the Real. So I'm afraid... Oh, goodness me. That's flames billowing out of the back of the Ilmor engine. And Ricard Rydell really needs to park that at the first corner and find a marshal's post. He's going to do just that. He's suddenly realised, he'll have seen in his rearview mirrors that the car's on fire. So this is not good news for Ricard Rydell at all. But certainly, as long as he gets out of the car relatively quickly, he's going to be safe and sound. But that is not the way that the Swedish driver would have chosen for his first race of the 1991 season to end. But fortunately, he's out of the car very quickly. The marshal's on the scene. The fire's already out. So great work. Excellent stuff there from the Orange Army. So Ukyo Katayama leads the battle to try and close down Wendlinger. And he's still only 4.7 seconds behind Wendlinger. So staying out has definitely worked out for Katayama, even though a lot of drivers have had a bit of a rude awakening stuck behind him. De Cesaris in fourth, then Suzuki in... De Cesaris in third, I should say. Then it's Suzuki in fourth. Fifth is Moreno. Sixth is McNish. Through they come again. And this is Eddie Cheever tucked up behind the Zaxby. So this is going to be Tommy Byrne again. And those two have been racing pretty much for the last 10 laps now, wheel to wheel. And they are inseparable at the moment. So De Cesaris working his way through the S's. Up to the left-hander and then up through the right-hand again. It's been a very solid weekend so far here in Cleveland on the Burke Lakefront Airport. It's been a very positive weekend. This new deal that the American Grand Prix location is going to be changing every single year. So there's not going to be one... Oh, that's Katayama lapping Johnny Herbert in the Dallara. I was just going to say that the confirmation of the deal to run the American Grand Prix in the Grand Prix World Championship moving forward is that the part of that deal is that the race location will change every year. There are so many states with great race circuits in motorsport here in North America that they've decided there will be a US Grand Prix every year, but it's going to change location every season, which is a fabulous idea. It brings Formula One to various different parts of the United States over the course of the next few years, so we're excited to see how that continues to progress. And there's already talk of next year either the return of one of the 1980s street circuits, either Detroit or Dallas is being talked about, but it would obviously be run at the beginning of the year, which might take away some of the problems of the track breaking up as what happened last time. The Modenas nearly tripping over each other there. So Tracy and Bernard very nearly falling out over each other in the final chicane. Here is Eric Bernard trying again on Paul Tracy. Diving through on the inside. Tracy is not going to concede. He's got a bit more experience of this circuit than his teammate Eric Bernard does, thanks to his time in IndyCar, which was very brief indeed. He only raced last year, I think. That was his maiden season in IndyCar, and he's been poached already by Modena. Let's see how well this goes for Cheever. He's got a good run here on Tommy Byrne. Down to the braking zone. And is that through? I think it is this time. Cheever's finally got past Tommy Byrne. Took him a long time, but Eddie Cheever has managed to make the move then on the Irishman. So up into 7th place then goes the Eurobrun Ford of Eddie Cheever. Carl Wendlinger still your race leader. There's Barbatza. As Johnny Herbert is trying to close up on the two Moderners and trying to stay out of trouble of the Leighton House Honda that's in the mix there. That is Katayama in 2nd place. De Cesaris still in 3rd position with their teammates, Suzuki and Moreno 4th and 5th. And the next car in the ranks is the Real. But unfortunately for McNish, he's not in a position to get into the Grand Prix because there's obviously 3 teams ahead of him. It's the top 3 teams in this race that join the top 10 teams from last year in 1990 that go through to the American Grand Prix. This is just the pre-qualifying encounter beforehand. So a fabulous situation. Now, there's been some suggestions that there could even be, when we were talking about the American Grand Prix location, that it might revert to a sort of a 1950s idea, as Barbatza duels away there with Joe Winkelhock, that for one race in the season, the Grand Prix World Championship might actually go on to a super speedway. So they might actually do one oval round of the championship, because of course, back in the 1950s, the Indianapolis 500 was actually part of the Grand Prix calendar. But I don't know how well that's going to be met with the teams, because obviously they're not used to racing on the ovals. They have got a few drivers in the field that have done so, but it's a very different skill racing on the ovals at full speed for the entirety of a Grand Prix compared to these sort of airport layouts or permanent circuit layouts or street circuits that they're used to. But that would definitely spice things up a bit for 1992. But there's all sorts of talk about which circuits are going to be on the calendar in next season's Grand Prix season anyway. Comas trying to get the move there on the inside of Capelli. And it is not going to happen on this occasion, so he can't get through. Wendlinger leads the way with 10 laps to go. Katayama in 2nd. 14.5 seconds back now from Wendlinger. That's how much time staying out has actually cost him. So let's see if there's going to be a little bit of a renaissance here from De Cesaris in the Coloni, because the Coloni is only 2 seconds back now. As we watch Martini trying to get away from Hideki Noda. This is the Minardi and the AGS. Great to see that all 14 teams have had a decent opportunity to get themselves into the race. The only team that didn't qualify for this pre-qualifying race, because 28 teams are trying to get 28 cars, I should say, sorry, are trying to get into these 26 spaces on the grid. The only cars that didn't make it through to this pre-qualifying race were the 2 life cars, being driven by Bruno Giacomelli and Cheryl Glass, the American, who sadly did not get the chance to race on her home soil. So down the straights, up towards the final chicane, and into the pits comes one of the Moderners. So one of the Moderners making a very late pit stop. That is not scheduled this late into the race, I don't think. So Moreno is still trying to make up for lost ground, trying to close up on a Goody Suzuki, and is lapping one of the Fon Matals, or trying to lap one of the Fon Matals. But De Cesaris is in 3rd position, just ahead of a Goody Suzuki, and they're not that far away from Katayama either. So this is a very tense race for all 3 of the teams in the top 3, Jordan, Leighton House and Coloni. We're on board with the Lego Fon Matal, captained as it is by Edward Hunter, the team principal of the Fon Matal team, with 2 very talented racers, Martin Donnelly and Roland Ratzenberger. The suggestion was that this kind of circuit is not really going to suit this car too well, but once they get to venues like Brazil, that's where the car is going to be at its best again. So that would certainly help them out by the time they get to Brazil. Wendlinger, still leading, doing a fair job, the Austrian. Has a very decent pedigree of racing behind him in the junior formulae in Germany, of course. And was part of the Sauber sports car team for parts of last year alongside his Grand Prix programme. So Carl Wendlinger, definitely one to watch for the future, and has got plenty of speed under his belt. Johnny Herbert trying to get up to 13th place. That's not going to happen because he's blocked at every turn there by Paul Tracy. Tracy doing his best to fend him off. But Johnny Herbert is charging his way through the field rapidly, and Ivan Capelli has just managed to move his way into 9th position past Comas. So there is Wendlinger lapping them, and that means that now only 9 cars are still on the lead lap with 7 laps to go for Carl Wendlinger. Here's Ukyo Katayama. Look back and we might be able to see De Cesaris and Suzuki, who are definitely starting to close up on the Japanese driver. There is the Dallara of Herbert, and behind them are De Cesaris, behind him, are De Cesaris and Suzuki. So now that's the Real coming towards us. That's got to be the lone Real left in this race, which is Alan McNish in P6. They are not quite going to have done enough here, I'm afraid, to get through to the Grand Prix as it currently stands, but they are certainly looking pretty strong. But then so too were Dallara on 1 lap pace, and so too as well were Reynard. And sadly, both Dallara and Reynard are not going to get through to the Grand Prix the way things currently stack up. Oh, bit of an issue there for Moreno, as he nearly trips over one of the Fonmatals. So Moreno's not going to be too happy about that. There's a reminder of the retirements list. Guerrero, Hill, Pirro. We obviously lost Larini in the early stages as well. But now with 6 to go, Wendlinger's out in front of Katayama and De Cesaris. Suzuki, Moreno, McNish, Chiva, Byrne, Capelli and Comas is the top 10. And we ride on board with De Cesaris, still looking okay in front of Suzuki. But he's actually really struggled to go through the traffic effectively. So that means he's got a little bit of ground to make up. So it's not so easy to hang on to at the moment. But the Coloni, with its Honda engine, very similar to the one in the Leighton House. There's a bit of a bid going on between these small teams and even their counterparts in the top 10, McLaren and Tyrrell. They all want to be the manufacturer backing for Honda. Currently, the Japanese team at Leighton House are very much considerate of the fact that it's them. And there's even consideration that Honda may actually take over the team officially for 1992. So here's Eric Bernard, the Frenchman, and he is currently behind Eddie Cheever, but he is a lap behind Eddie Cheever. Now, what kind of horsepower has the Lamborghini engine got to the Ford? Well, we won't find out today because we just lost. And Johnny Herbert's gone again! Johnny Herbert has gone off again in exactly the same place that he lost it earlier on. Well, that's a very embarrassing end to the day for the Dallara team then. Just to compound their rather dramatic start to the season, Johnny Herbert goes off. Oh, and he's gone off again. Well, there's clearly some handling difficulties with the Dallara now after his earlier off, because Johnny Herbert is not that bad a driver at all. So clearly something is not quite right with the Dallara. Well, anyway, Carl Wendlinger is your race leader with less than 4 laps to go before we get to the Grand Prix section of the day. To the inside line, and that was a nice little overtaking move there. So obviously the Fonmatal team have not given up hope, they're still pushing on. Here's Eddie Cheever, right up behind Alan McNish. So Cheever and the Eurobrun Ford team really making good progress here. And this is obviously going to be a bit of a slow burn for the Ford-backed Eurobrun team, but they have come in with a factory effort, and they're hoping that for 1992 things will be very different, as Ratzenberger's gone off. Now, what's happened to Ratzenberger? That looked like a very strange incident. I want to see that one again, actually. There is Ratzenberger. Oh, he got hit! He got hit by Martini! Now, that was a very rude incident from Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi, trying to make his way through there on Ratzenberger, and he just nudged him off the road. Well, that's certainly going to be investigated after the race weekend is over, isn't it? Because that's a blatant error from Pierluigi Martini. Oh, and that's Ratzenberger. He's got a loose wheel. So he clearly picked up damage going into the wall. And I'm afraid Ratzenberger's out of the race. Well, Ed Hunter, the team principal, is going to be absolutely hopping mad at that one. And I think he's got every reason to be on this occasion. Ratzenberger climbs out of the car. He is livid. Well, clearly, the Cleveland-Burke Lakefront Airport circuit was not going to be a good one for the Fonmatal team anyway, but that just adds insult to injury, doesn't it? Barbazza now right up behind Tommy Byrne, and he's going for the overtaking move. This is for 8th place. Has he got him? Yes, he has. Nice run from Barbazza. So whatever problems he had earlier in the race, they're certainly combating it now. And there is De Cesaris, still running in 3rd position. Tucked up behind the Leighton House. He's caught up to Katayama. He's going to go wheel to wheel. And look who's behind him. That's Suzuki. So they've both caught up to him. And they've got 2 laps to run. So this is going to be a bit of a nail-biting finish with Katayama, De Cesaris and Suzuki all in position. So a fascinating situation there. Wow, this is absolutely fascinating. Martini battling away then. Martini there alongside Hideki Noda in the AGS. Noda trying to go through. Hasn't been able to get to the overtaking move. And here comes Johnny Herbert trying to overtake him yet again. He actually made that look pretty easy, did Johnny Herbert on that occasion. He's found his way back through, but unfortunately it's too little, too late. Alan McNish still trying to fend off from Chiva and Barbazza. And there is your race leader, Carl Wendlinger, in the Zepter Jordan the Zepter Jordan Ferrari, I should say. There are many teams in this 1991 season with Honda engines, but Jordan certainly isn't one of them. Their team principal, Topher Smith, running at the behest of the team owner, Eddie Jordan, having a fabulous run. And it looks as though Carl Wendlinger was a very sensible choice. As he has come through in fine fashion here in Cleveland. And as long as he stays out of trouble down to the final chicane, although there is a big battle going on between McNish and Chiva. Chiva's trying to get through. He hasn't made it, and Wendlinger managed to get past the Modena in the same breath. But the checkered flag is out, and it is going to be a victory for Carl Wendlinger and the Jordan team. So they will go through to the Grand Prix. But then there is a monumental battle going on further back. Here it is. De Cesaris has got through. We were so busy watching Wendlinger, we didn't see De Cesaris get through in a second place. So De Cesaris is through. That's going to guarantee Coloni. And it looks as though Leighton House are just about going to hang on. But who's going to get there? It will be Katayama in front of Suzuki. And I have a feeling there's going to be some cross words between the teammates a little bit later on. But they've managed to make it through. So Jordan come through for the victory in the pre-qualifying race. De Cesaris in the Coloni was second. And then Katayama and Suzuki in the Leighton houses were third and fourth. So McNish in the Real just missing out there. So too did Chiva in the Eurobrun Ford. Tommy Byrne did a good job in the Zach Speed, and Ivan Capelli was solid for Monteverdi as well. But it's going to be Jordan, Leighton House and Coloni that go through to the Grand Prix. What a fabulous battle that was, and we've had a really exciting challenge. Now, we've got to try and find out through all of that who set the fastest lap, and that was Damon Hill, right in the early stages. In fact, both the Dalaras were very quick. So, a very tough battle, but there it is. Carl Wendlinger taking the win from De Cesaris, Katayama and Suzuki. Then Moreno in front of McNish, Chiva and Barbazza. Tommy Byrne in the top 10 for the Zach Speed team, and Ivan Capelli in 10th place for Monteverdi. Then it is Eric Comas in front of Winkelhock, Donnelly and Herbert from Martini, Tracy, Noda, Bernard and Ratzenberger. The retirements, well, it was a busy race and a fascinating one too.
So an absolute nail-biter right to the very end. But we now know that the three teams that will go on to the Grand Prix starting grid from pre-qualifying are Coloni, Leighton House and Jordan. What a fantastic battle it was, and a very deserving victory for Carl Wendlinger in pre-qualifying. Now we move on then to the US Grand Prix from Cleveland.
So, for the Grand Prix itself, it's 100 laps of the circuit. It's Gerhard Berger who just pips Ayrton Senna to the pole by 0.004 of a second from the Ferraris of Michael Schumacher and Nigel Mansell. Alessandro Nannini lines up fifth alongside the Tyrrell of Jean Alesi, then the Brabham pair of Alain Prost and Mika Hakkinen on the fourth row of the starting grid. Then it's Patrese and Alboreto, and then Mauricio Gugelmin and Stefano Modena in the two Lolas way up on the sixth row. Frentzen is alongside Brundle in the leading Benetton. They've struggled so far, as has Piquet PK in the Arrows, and Thierry Boutsen really struggling in the second Williams. Then Suzuki did a great job in qualifying ahead of Mark Blundell. Derek Warwick is 19th on the grid for Lotus ahead of Ukyo Katayama in the second Leighton House. Then it's Fernandez and Wendlinger with Eddie Irvine and the Ligier alongside Fabrizio Barbazza, and the back of the grid taken up by the two Colonis of Moreno and De Cesaris. Into the start of the 1991 US Grand Prix. This is going to be a thriller right from the outset. McLaren have struck gold nice and early. The Porsche Williams looks pretty strong as well in second position on the grid. The Ferraris look strong for Schumacher and Mansell. We're racing at Cleveland. It's the US Grand Prix 1991. It's a great start from Schumacher. He's actually beaten Senna off the line. And Berger's going to try and hold this into the first corner. Schumacher trying to come by into the lead of the race. Berger's going to hold this round the outside of the McLaren. Patrese locking up through turn one. But it's Berger, Schumacher, Senna, Alesi in the Tyrrell going strong there up to fourth. And then it's Nannini in the second McLaren. It looks like it's a fairly tidy first corner. And certainly the first part of the lap is perfect for Gerhard Berger in the McLaren. He leads Schumacher's Ferrari. Here comes Alesi in the Red Bull Tyrrell. Can't get by. Nannini is going to try and make his bid to get through into fourth position. But Senna in the Porsche Williams looking very comfortable. And here's Berger in the McLaren, still leading in front of Schumacher in the Ferrari, who's going to be pushing all the way. Here comes Schumacher, trying to make his bid down into the final chicane. Can he commit into the lead of the race? He's gone for it, and he's there. He has actually taken the lead. Schumacher into the Ferrari, into the lead, and it's a perfect start to 1991 for the German. Wow, straight out of the blocks, and Ferrari are so much stronger than they were last year at the same time. Here's Mansell. He's had a bit of a tricky start, but he's certainly looking much more comfortable. He's up to fifth place now in front of Nannini. And Mark Blundell is in the pits in the Benetton. So there's been problems then for the Benetton on the opening lap. So a very tricky start to proceedings then. But it's Schumacher, Berger, Alesi, who has now got through into third past Ayrton Senna. So Jean Alesi has been absolutely fantastic so far in the opening lap. He's dealt with the Porsche Williams very well. And you have to say it that way round these days, because that's the name of the team now. It is known as Porsche Williams. So here's Jean Alesi, the Frenchman, really starting to cannon after Berger. Then in fourth. Oh, there's a car in trouble already. Look at that. There's smoke coming out of the back of somebody in the far side of the course as Brundle duels away there with Patrese and Alboreto in the Lotus. We've got somebody with smoke. There's Blundell, who has recovered after a first lap pit stop. Oh, Fernandez has got smoke in his eyes. It's his teammate. It's Piquet. Nelson Piquet at the end of lap 2. Oh, and that's gone very badly wrong. But the BMW engine doesn't even manage to last two laps without hitting trouble. So I'm afraid Nelson Piquet, the three-time world champion, is already in trouble here in Cleveland. And I'm afraid his timeout in Ohio has not been productive at all. Nelson Piquet on lap 3 pulls out of this race. Well, bit of disappointment then for Nelson Piquet, the world champion in 1981, 83 and 87, who is already trying to wave off any suggestions at all of his impending retirement. Someone else is in trouble. It's Alesi! Oh my goodness! Alesi's in trouble! That is so cruel. He had done a fantastic job to get up into third place. Senna storms back past him. And it's engine failure with the Honda engine for Red Bull Tyrrell. There goes Mansell. And I'm afraid, oh dear, Jean Alesi having all sorts of problems. Well, this is such a shame for Jean Alesi. He came out of the blocks like a fighting, whirling dervish. He's trying not to... Well, he's impeding everybody as he tries to get back to the pits. I think finally he's realised, yep, I can't sustain this any longer. And Jean Alesi, well, everybody's doing a great job to avoid him. I think Jean Alesi may get the book thrown at him here for continuing on and holding everybody up on his way to retirement. But Jean Alesi, that's just devastating. Third position, on for the win. And I'm afraid the Tyrrell doesn't even manage to go 4 laps without problems. There's Piquet's car being pushed in as well, so that's 2 of the big names from this race. Nelson Piquet in the Arrows and Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. Right, let's hope it all settles down a little bit now. Schumacher leading the way. Berger in second place. 4th position is Mansell behind Senna. So Schumacher, Berger, Senna and Mansell. Then Nannini in 5th place. Gugelmin is in P6 from Patrese. Then Brundle, Alboreto and Hakkinen. Now Hakkinen is of course the unbelievable world champion last year. In his rookie season in Formula 1, he managed to get the world title. So there is Schumacher leading the way from Berger, Mansell, Senna and Nannini. But Hakkinen, who was last year's world champion, is in the top 10 in the all-new Brains Brabham, which has got a lot of Welsh influence this year, thanks to their team principal, Ewan Gale, who has tried to really spice up the appearance of this Brabham for 1991. They had a preliminary testing livery, which was basically endorsing the entirety of the Welsh flag all over the car. There are subtle hints to the Cymru Dragon, but otherwise it's very much in the colours of their two main sponsors, Yaesu, which is a Japanese electronics company. There is Mika Hakkinen, just as we're talking about him, and the Brains Welsh Beer Company, which has been in operation since the late 1800s. So it's the first time they've ever gone into Formula 1. So Mansell now up to third. So he's got past Senna. And Senna's under pressure from Gugelmin and Nannini. In fact, Nannini's got through. So is Senna trying to go for this heavy fuel strategy option? Now, obviously, they cannot go the entire Grand Prix without a pit stop. But you can see that Senna is actually running a very heavy car at the moment by the look of it. And, oh, that's Fernandez. That's the other arrows. Ah, BMW engines are not reliable. That's the news headlines here. And it's rather embarrassing because Nelson Piquet used to have BMW engines, of course, in his Brabham days. Well, dear, oh dear. Not gone good. So Fernandez having a big problem at the start of the season then in the Arrows BMW. So that is both cars out of the race before we even hit 10 laps. So through comes the race leader. It's Ferrari out in front, which is a nice change, actually, because 1990 they had a horrific season where they actually finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship. But now they are at the front from the front. And Derek Warwick making his bid on Boutsen. Boutsen is really struggling in the Porsche Williams as well. So Senna, I think this is tactical. Gugelmin in 6th position behind him though, so the two Brazilians are going to go to battle before too long. That's Wendlinger trying to get past his old adversary, Ukyo Katayama. And Katayama is yet again not letting anybody go through. It's always fascinating how drivers and teams work so hard to get into the Grand Prix that once they get onto the qualifying session for the Grand Prix itself, they'll sometimes lose out to the teams that they beat in pre-qualifying. They'll take a very different strategy for the race itself in Formula 1 just to make sure that they go the distance. It's a very different tactical game as Gugelmin in the Lola, would you believe, is trying to get past the Porsche Williams of Senna. Now I would estimate that this is Senna with a heavy fuel load rather than having a mechanical problem of some kind, otherwise it probably would have happened by now. So Mansell working his way through as he runs behind. There's Alain Prost in the Brabham. Now, he's already said that this is going to be a season of development for the Brabham team. He knows that very well. But obviously, he's joined the team that gave Mika Hakkinen the championship title last year. So this is definitely going to be a fascinating situation for Prost over the course of the season. Schumacher leads Berger, Mansell, Nannini and Senna in the Porsche Williams. Frentzen we're on board with in the Tyrrell. He's currently tucked up behind one of the Colonies, I think that is in front. So not having the easiest of times here, Frentzen. He's not really gelled well with the airport circuit here. Meanwhile, here comes Mansell. Mansell trying to close up then on Berger's McLaren. And there's Riccardo Patrese. He's had a much better time in the Ligier than his teammate Eddie Irvine has. And there does seem to be a bit of a swing towards one driver than the other in Cleveland this weekend. So far, Berger has had the edge on Nannini all the way through. Although the gap between them hasn't been that big, as Wendlinger duels with Frentzen. Alesi's definitely had the edge on Frentzen at Tyrrell all weekend long. Patrese has definitely got the better of Irvine at Ligier here this weekend. And certainly, Senna has been, for most of the weekend, about a second a lap faster than Boutsen. That's worrying if you're Thierry Boutsen. So Schumacher, Berger, Mansell, Nannini, and then Senna. 3 retirements already though. Fernandez and Piquet in the 2 Arrows cars. And Jean Alesi while running in 3rd place and actually catching Berger at the time. So Who knows where the Tyrrell could have ended up. Here's Derek Warwick trying to battle his way further forward past Suzuki. And there's Wendlinger still dueling with Fredson. It's not going to happen. Well, Ferrari have definitely got the monkey off their back a little bit. First and third, that's more like it. They had a good solid end to 1990 and they said now we're going to go into 1991 with a much better car. Now let's look at fuel loads. Now Berger's going longer than Mansell and Schumacher. So the Ferraris have fueled light. Try and get further ahead in the early stages. That's a good tactical decision. Nannini's in 4th place. Senna is heavy. That's why he's dropping back. Gugelmin is on a light load. Patrese gone heavy in the Ligier. Alboreto in the Lotus has gone light. And heavy for Martin Brundle in the Benetton and for Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham, who is actually passing Brundle. So Hakkinen has got through into 9th place past Brundle. So Brabham and Benetton having a bit of a slow and sluggish start to 1991. They were expected to have a very strong season. But so far, it looks as though the dice has been rolled on car development. There are going to be some major upgrades for the teams, though, by the time they get to the 3rd round of the championship at Imola. Obviously, they've got to run with the cars as they are for now, and also in Brazil. There's going to be some big upgrades coming from the teams, that's for sure. Schumacher in the Ferrari, Berger in the McLaren, then Mansell, Nannini, Senna, Gugelmin, Patrese, Alboreto, Hakkinen and Modena. So Brundle has lost another place. That's dropped the Benetton down to 11th in front of Alain Prost in the Brabham. I have to say the Brabham definitely looks like one of the most colourful cars in Grand Prix racing now. As Senna has just been able to stay in front of Gugelmin. A little bit of a battle into the first corner, I gather. But there is Alain Prost in the Brains Brabham Ilmore. So still they battle. There's Schumacher. Trying to work his way round the course. Neat and tidy. And still battling away. So Schumacher just keeping the pressure on the drivers around him. Here's Mansell going for Berger. Now this is to be expected because Mansell's on a lighter fuel load than the McLaren. Can he get through? No, Berger is not letting Mansell have it. These two have had several battles in the past. And it looks as though they're going to have another one today. And this is all helping the Ferrari out in front of Michael Schumacher, who's now managed to pull about 8.4 seconds clear. But as you can see, it's a lot closer up at the front in the Grand Prix than it was in pre-qualifying, for example. Berger still going strong though in the McLaren. Then Irvine trying to work his way forward. We're watching the Ligier go wheel to wheel with one of the Colonis. I think that's the Cesaris. It is indeed. But obviously this is a long race, and in 1991 it is the top 10 cars that score championship points. So there are a lot more opportunities to score points over the course of Grand Prix racing than there were, say, a couple of years ago when it was only the top 6 that got points. Now it's the top 10. So through to the chicane once again. And you can see that Mansell really is putting Berger under pressure. Up to the first corner, Mansell's going to chuck it in. Are we going to have a Ferrari 1-2? Mansell's certainly committing to it. Oh, and Berger around the outside. No, he can't get through. So Mansell remains down in 3rd. So it's Ferrari, McLaren, Porsche Williams and Lola. Ligier in 7th, then it's Lotus in front of Lola and Brabham. So a fascinating start to the season, but certainly the 3 strongest cars appear to be Ferrari, McLaren and Williams. There's a heavy fuel load, and Senna is still keeping within about 18 seconds of the leaders. Whoops, that's Wendlinger tripping over Fredson. They've been battling since the start, these two. You've got to feel for Mark Blundell as well. He's having a very long race down in 23rd as he tries to make a recovery after having to pit on the first lap for damage. So Berger still in front of Mansell, and he's got to get on with it because Alessandro Nannini in the second McLaren is closing up. Here's Alboreto trying to get his move on Patrese, and he's through. Good work from Alboreto. So the Lotus gets up into 7th place, and look, Senna's got Gugelmin all over the back of him. So the 2 Brazilians are having a tasty little duel. But still, the young German, Ferrari ace Michael Schumacher, recently turned 22 years of age. So if he wins this race, he's going to be one of the youngest Grand Prix winners since Hakkinen. Mansell. Just there in front of Nannini. Boutsen is having a very long day at the office in the Porsche Williams. Finds the opportunity down the inside. Does it? No, you're not going to lose out to a Coloni. Not if you're in a Williams. That would have been a bit embarrassing for Thierry Boutsen. So up to the first corner. Schumacher leads Berger, Mansell, Nannini and Senna. First hairpin. Nannini is really putting the pressure on Mansell now. Mansell needs to get past Berger nice and quickly. Otherwise, he's going to really lose out. And the first major pit stop of the race comes from Stefano Modena in the Lola. I have to say, Modena is doing a very good job here. So too is Gugelmin, actually. Both cars were in the top 10 at the pit stop. So the Lola team have come out of the blocks with a very good car underneath them. But of course, Lola has a lot of experience of the Cleveland Lakefront Airport from their IndyCar days. So Lola would have had good data to take into this race. And they've been able to find something quite special. Here's Mansell. Can't quite get past Berger. Doing his best, but he just can't make it happen. Nannini has got Mansell in his sights now. Will the McLaren get through into third position? The answer is no. Nannini is still there. Now Blundell is starting to make his way through the field. So he's got past. Now who has he got past? That's got to be Modena, hasn't it, in the Lola? He was the first one to pit. Yes, indeed. So that shows you how much time you're losing if you're pitting from about 10th or 11th place. You're going to go to the back of the field, such as the short nature of this circuit. But Blundell is making his bid now to get through past the Jordan of Barbazza. No, you don't, says the Italian. We're racing each other. Why should I let you through? That's a very simple... Oh, and Alboreto! Alboreto! I thought he was going to catch it, but he hasn't. He spun the Lotus. That was such a shame. Alboreto was having a great race. And unfortunately, he's just pushed it a little bit too hard there. And everybody is going to drift through as Mansell pits, and so does Nannini. So Mansell and Nannini have both decided to pit on this lap and not lose any more time behind Berger. But look at Alboreto. The whole field is just going to storm past him. Very unfortunate indeed for the Italian. And as we get up to lap 20 of this Grand Prix, it's not going well at all. So Senna is promoted to third thanks to the pit stops. But look, he's still got quite a way to go before his pit stop. So Senna is obviously on a very complex strategy going further into the race. So he's got to work his tyres even more. Schumacher can't have that long before he makes a pit stop from the lead as Wendlinger comes in the Jordan. And there is Ayrton Senna. World champion in 1988. Last year, of course, it was Mika Hakkinen that won the title after Alain Prost and Senna clashed at Suzuka at the end of 1989. So into the pits comes Mauricio Gugelmin from fourth position. What a race this is for his Brazilian counterpart. So Gugelmin comes into the pits for Lola. I'll tell you what, the data that they've collected from Champ Car on this circuit back in the day, they are really mastering this race circuit. So Gugelmin's going to drop down outside the points, but they're going to climb back into it. So here's Senna, third position, going strong. It's a heavy fuel strategy, so take into consideration that as Prost is overtaken by Mansell. Oh, and Prost has gone off! Prost goes off in the Brabham. He's got a loose wheel. Well, that puts Alain Prost out of the race. Very unfortunate. Mansell, I thought it was a bit easy for Prost to concede to Mansell there, but I'm afraid Alain Prost has spun off as Michael Schumacher pits. So the race leader is in pit road as Alain Prost, sadly, is the first Brabham retirement of the 1991 season. Unfortunately, Mr. Professor may have the brains, but the car has the brawn at the moment. So there's Mark Blundell working his way forward. He's just in front of Michele Alboreto, two drivers that have had a tough day at the office. Warwick has just pitted, that's why he's down in 21st. So it's Gerhard Berger who leads the race, but Berger still has to pit later on, and he's, like Senna, going long into the race. Now Schumacher has rejoined. Oh, Schumacher spins! Schumacher spins in the Ferrari! That's a big one. And that has cost him. He's lost out to Hakkinen. But fortunately, he is back on the road in front of Mansell and Nannini. Now, how did he do that? He went for the move on Patrese. There wasn't any contact between them, though. That's critical. So Schumacher was very impatient trying to get past Patrese. That's his youth and exuberance, I guess. He went for the move, it wasn't on, and I'm afraid Schumacher has spun it down to 5th. So Hakkinen in the Brabham's gone through. Mansell and Nannini have not gone through, but that is advantage Berger and Senna. Because Schumacher would have lost a good 10 to 12 seconds in that. And there's Frentzen, currently battling in front of Gugelmin and Katayama. And behind, Roberto Moreno in the Coloni. So Frentzen is really not getting to grips with this circuit at all. Fortunate for the drivers who are not having a good day at the office here at Cleveland. They won't be here next year, because it'll be a different racetrack altogether. Gugelmin. Up to the inside line. Oof. Not going to happen. Gugelmin going for Frentzen. Frentzen not letting him have his moment. So Berger on the back straight. Trying to make his way as far ahead of Ayrton Senna as he possibly can before his pit stop. But Senna is driving beautifully in terms of lap times. He is staying within 9 seconds of Berger on a car that is, well, they're fairly similar in terms of pace, I guess, but then they're both fairly similar on fuel loads. But I think in terms of the long game strategy of this, Senna is the one who's, well, he's being Ayrton Senna, isn't he? He's just keeping himself in the game here. Mansell getting wheel to wheel with Martin Brundle. Trying to come through on the inside, and Mansell's got him. Mansell is through past Martin Brundle, so that's the Ferrari up into P6 as Schumacher closes up on Mika Hakkinen. Hakkinen in the Brabham, Schumacher in the Ferrari. Now this will be an interesting duel between them as Moreno comes in the Coloni in 13th. Hakkinen in the Brabham, Schumacher in the Ferrari. These two dueling for 4th position. Now surely the advantage is going to be on Schumacher with fresher tyres. But we've already seen Schumacher make a big mistake trying to get past Patrese and throwing away what could have been a potential victory. Although it very much depends on how much time he's able to gain back, of course. But Schumacher all over the back of Mika Hakkinen. Here he goes. He's got a very fast Ferrari engine. Is it going to be enough to get past Hakkinen? He looks at it and he's there. Good move from Schumacher. So up the road in front of him, that is Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier Renault. Just keeping it nice and tidy. Patrese's on a long fuel strategy too, very similar to Berger and Senna, which is why he's up there in 3rd position. The next car on the road is that of Schumacher's Ferrari. Has he been able to get away with that? I think it very much depends on where Berger gets out again, because Schumacher's only 23 seconds back from Berger. So actually, despite the spin, I think Schumacher, because he did so well in the opening phase of the race, might still have a chance to take back the lead when the pit stops are done. But then, of course, Schumacher will have to pit again. So Schumacher's got a good 20 seconds to make up over this Grand Prix. Berger leads. Senna second, then Patrese, Schumacher, Hakkinen, Mansell, Nannini, Brundle, Suzuki and Boutsen. That's the top 10 at the moment. As we approach 1/4 distance in the US Grand Prix of 1991 here at the Berg Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Ohio. Gugelmin going wheel to wheel with Frentzen. Frentzen is not giving away anything he doesn't have to. Frentzen looks like he's on the heavy fuel load as well. Some drivers clearly feeling that going heavy on fuel is actually going to give you a better race than if you go for a light fuel stop. And it certainly worked out for Katayama, didn't it, in the pre-qualify. He was able to come through in 3rd position. Despite all sorts of difficulties, it did work out to be the right strategy from him. Oh, and a bit of a mistake there from Moreno. So Senna is going to have no problems at all lapping the Coloni. In fact, Moreno gets off the throttle and lets his countrymen go through. So no problems at all there. And Senna is only 10.9 seconds back from Berger as we watch Patrese going through the first hairpin, who is a good 7 seconds back from Senna nearly. But Gerhard Berger in the McLaren definitely approaching the pit stop window. He's not quite going to be coming in yet, I don't think, because there's still quite a long way to go in this Grand Prix. We are 1/4 distance through, 75 laps to go, and 24 minutes into the Grand Prix when they came across the line last time by. There's still a long way to go. But certainly for McLaren, it looks good at the moment. Gerhard Berger enjoying himself. There's Irvine diving through onto Cesaris. No, it's not going to happen. And now Irvine. Oh! Irvine got a bit of a nerf there and he spins. He spins the Ligier. Now, that looked to me as though there was a little bit of a love tap there from Barbazza. So that could be a little bit of an argument from Eddie Irvine's point of view that the Jordan got a little bit too close to him. But Irvine has spun the Ligier. There goes his teammate lapping him. And Eddie Irvine is now stranded on the outside of turn 1 as the field is starting to lap him. So this has not gone well at all. Hakkinen's got Mansa behind him. We just saw him go through. Then the Nini, then Brundle. There goes Suzuki. And there goes Thierry Boutsen. And Barbatsa's out of the race. Well, that's ironic because Barbatsa was the one who ended up nudging the back of Irvine's car. Well, Barbatsa's got an engine failure. I don't really see how those two incidents are therefore related. But Barbatsa wasn't destined to finish the Grand Prix anyway. So Barbatsa's out of the race. But Eddie Irvine is still stranded at the first corner. So that's not good news for the Ligier driver. There he is. He's trying to get the car going again. And he's actually technically driving the wrong way, but you're allowed to do that if you're on the grass. And Irvine is trying to find a gear by the look of it. I think the Ligier may be struggling to find a decent gear. Look, he's not quite able to get the revs up in that car. So I wonder if this could be game over for Eddie Irvine. That would be heartbreak. As we watch Schumacher, who is 19 seconds back from Berger. So he's definitely gaining the time, isn't he? He's managing to chip away at it. The Marshall's there clearing up Barbatsa's car. There's Wendlinger in the Jordan. Still having a very tidy race as he runs further back. The Marshals have managed to tidy up Barbatsa's car. As Blundell closes up on the Ligier, or tries to close up with the Ligier. And that's Irvine. Irvine's out of the race. So he's given out. Got out of the car. Clearly he couldn't find a gear. And I'm afraid Eddie Irvine is out. So that's another retirement. 2 retirements then in quick succession. Ironically, the 2 that ended up tangling with each other by the look of it. Irvine and Barbatsa. So that's 2 more retirements to add to the list. And they join Prost, Fernandez, Alesi and Piquet. So 2 Arrows, a Tyrrell, a Brabham, a Jordan and a Ligier. 20 cars still left on lap 29 of the 100 laps here at Cleveland, Ohio. And it's a great race so far for McLaren, a very solid race for Williams, and a potentially brilliant race for Ferrari. Oh, and that's Blundell. So Blundell in the Benetton. Now he is running behind the Ferrari. What's happened here? And Blundell's just lost it on his own. Oh dear, the Benetton just going a little bit too far over the limit there. And I'm afraid the Apple Benetton Porsche just chucks him out of the apex of the corner. And unfortunately, Mark Blundell spins it. He has recovered. And it doesn't look as though the car's that damaged, actually. He just swapped ends. Managed to get the car slowed down enough before he hit anything solid, though. So I think Mark Blundell may have got away with that. Meanwhile, though, Berger is out in front of Senna. And he's only 9.3 seconds ahead, actually. So Senna started catching Berger a little bit, which could be critical come the pit stops. If he can find a way to leapfrog him, he's got to make up a lot of time. But if he can find a way to leapfrog him at the pit stop, then Senna may get a decent chance of a podium here. But looking at the pace that Schumacher's got, the gap is down to 17 seconds over Berger, so I wouldn't really expect Berger or Senna to be able to keep the lead ahead of Schumacher's Ferrari when he pits. And looking at Mansell's pace, I think Mansell might even get into second place here as well. Ferrari are playing the long game. It's into the pits. Oh, I thought into the pits was coming Derek Warwick in the Lotus, but no, it's not the case. He's too busy dueling with Andrea De Cesaris in the Coloni. But I think Ferrari have got the long game won here. Schumacher's got good pace, so has Mansell. And now Schumacher's passing Patrese, because Patrese in the Ligier is coming into the pits. And that's for the first of the heavy fuel loads. So Senna is in second place, as we know. Schumacher's up to third, and the gap has come down again. Look, 16.7. Mansell making his bid on the inside of the world champion Mika Hakkinen, and that'll do nicely. Thank you very much. Oh no, it won't. Hakkinen got him back again. All you got to do is get that first corner right, and you can hang on for another lap, and that's exactly what Mika Hakkinen did. So Hakkinen is now fourth, Mansell is fifth. Back up to second comes Ayrton Senna in the Porsche Williams. And in the lead is the McLaren Honda of Gerhard Berger. Only 9 seconds, 9.5 ahead of Senna. Then Schumacher, Hakkinen, Mansell, Nannini. And then rounding out the point scorers, it's Brundle in the Benetton, Suzuki in the Leighton House, Boutsen in the Williams, and Frentzen in the Tyrrell. So Still the race ploughs on. Michael Schumacher trying his best to get a first win of the season for Ferrari. Poached from the Williams testing program last year. And they were obviously putting Michael Schumacher into the Reynard outfit at the beginning of last year. And then Ferrari poached him away for 1991. They saw potential in this superstar German driver. This man, well, he's already a superstar and a world champion to boot. He won the world title in 1988, 3 years ago. And Berger's in the pits. Berger's in the pits. Right, so Senna's going to take back the lead as Boutsen, goodness me, nearly throws away the Porsche Williams. Just about catches it. Good job there from the Belgian. But into the lead goes Senna. And look, Berger's actually going all the way to the end. Look at that. That's a very heavy fuel load he's going to carry for the rest of the race. Well, clearly, they know something we don't. So Berger's going long. Just a one-stop strategy then for Gerhard Berger. I wonder what Ayrton Senna's going to do, but he's not pitting on this lap because the digital readout on the right-hand side of the car would tell you, pit, that would be lit up. And it isn't at the moment. So Senna leads and Schumacher second. Here comes Nannini trying to make his bid on the inside of Hakkinen. Nannini left very little room to manoeuvre there as Mika Hakkinen makes it very clear that he's not getting through. So fair play to Hakkinen, who is keeping the Brabham team's hopes alive, really. I'm quite surprised. I would have thought, actually, that Hakkinen might have had a little bit of a hunger to go to one of the big teams as well. I mean, I don't want to be too incredulous to the Brabham team, but I think even they would be the first to admit that they don't quite have the same budget and resources as some of the other teams in the paddock. Mansell going well here. Here's Gugelmin. Gugelmin still tucked up behind Boutsen. Can he make the overtaking move on the Porsche Williams? Yes, he can. Good work there from Gugelmin. And De Cesaris dueling away with the second of the Jordans. That's Carl Wendlinger. Sorry, it's the leading Jordan, isn't it? Because Babazza is behind him. So Carl Wendlinger, the Jordan team, looking for their first championship point. They may have won the pre-qualifying race, but that only got them into the Grand Prix. They didn't get any points from it. So there is De Cesaris. Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. He had a horrible 1990 after a reasonably good one in 1989, but he's decided that 1991 will be his last shot at the World Championship with Ferrari. And then, well, he's even hinted at a possible retirement. Senna, Schumacher, Mansell. The Ferraris are second and third. Ahead of Nannini in the second McLaren. Although technically it's the leading McLaren at the moment because Berger's already pitted. Hakkinen is fifth, Berger is sixth, Brundle is seventh, then Suzuki, Gugelmin and Boutsen. But there's still a heck of a lot of plot to come in this race. We've just gone past 1/3's distance. And there's Patrese dueling away with Modena. Modena's going to try and get through. Patrese takes it right on the outside. That'll do. And Senna is your leader in the Williams. Although look how quickly Michael Schumacher has managed to chip away at his advantage. The gap is down to 1.7 seconds. So whilst it was a gamble that looked like it worked for Leightonhouse to get into the Grand Prix, I'm not entirely sure it's going to work for Porsche Williams to go and win the Grand Prix. Schumacher has chipped away big time. But then look, Schumacher's also got to make a pit stop again. He's going to have to come in a second time. So it's not done yet by any means here. Schumacher trying not to trip over the Jordan. He's managed to get out of the way of Wendlinger. As Mansell is only 15 seconds back from Senna as well. So this could be a Ferrari 1-2 the way things are currently looking. Certainly looks pretty neat and tidy at the moment. There's Senna in the Porsche Williams. Schumacher is second. Here he goes. Off! Left very little room there as he tried to lap one of the Colonis. I think that was De Cesaris. As Thierry Boutsen in the Williams comes into the pits for his pit stop, so he drops out of the top 15. But then he should make his way back into the points a little later. Mansell tucked up behind one of the Leightonhouse cars. And here's Mauricio Gugelmin. This is for position. He's trying to get through on a Goody Suzuki. Gugelmin versus Suzuki down at the chicane. No, you don't, says a Goody Suzuki. He's clearly been to the Ukiyo Katayama School of Driving, hasn't he? Alboreto trying to get his move on Moreno. And that's not going to work out just yet. battles everywhere you look in this field. That's what the 1991 Grand Prix regulations were designed to do. They were designed to give us great racing everywhere through the field. As Mansell is going to try and lap the Leighton House. No problems at all with that one. As Ayrton Senna comes in. Senna comes in the Williams. So this is a critical pit stop. Schumacher goes through to the lead. Now Senna's got to go. Oh, he's going the long way. So I would estimate this pit stop's going to be about 12 seconds roughly, because there's a lot of fuel that's going to go on board. It's going to go even longer than that by the look of it. There you go, 14 dead for Ayrton Senna. And so Senna will rejoin as Brundle comes into the pits as well. So Senna's going to rejoin P6, I do believe. It's out onto the circuit, just in front of Suzuki and Gugelmin. And so Ayrton Senna rejoins in P6, but there's a long way to go. But crucially, he's behind Berger. Oh, and that's Patrese! Patrese's had a bit of a wild moment. Now, he was as high as third at one point. So what's happened to Patrese? He's already had his pit stop, as we know. He was dueling there with Modena. And what happened? Whoa! Goodness me. Patrese spun and found the smallest gap in history behind the tyres and actually skated the car into the pit lane. So he's quite lucky, actually. Didn't look to me as though he actually hit anything. Or if he has, then it's certainly... he's got away with it. But he's going to come into the pit and he's going to reboot the engine and get back out there. But what it has done is it's dropped Riccardo Patrese out of the top 10. Ligier are not likely to score a point today. So very unfortunate. Schumacher. Mansell. Ferrari 1 and 2. Hakkinen comes into the pits. Now he's decided to go into the pit lane now as well. And what's he doing? He's going long. So Hakkinen is also going long. It's interesting that they're not really going for 3-stop strategies. It's only 2-stop or an early 1-stop. A very interesting strategy call then. So clearly, in the latter stage of the race, the bumps, or whatever it might be, whatever the reason for it, I'm sure the teams will come up with a decent excuse at the end of the race. But certainly all the teams seem to be going down the early pit stop route for 1-stoppers. So there's Nannini in 3rd position in the McLaren, just lapping a back marker. And that back marker is actually Patrese, who is not being very kind. Patrese doesn't want to be lapped. I was battling for the podium at one point. And that's Alboreto locking up on the way through turn 1 as he deals with Frentzen and Boutsen. And there is Nigel Mansell. What a difference a year makes. Ferrari are 1 and 2 again. But it's the young pretender, Michael Schumacher, who's out in front. Oh, there was a bit of a puff of smoke up in front. And it's a big puff of smoke. It's De Cesaris. So I'm afraid Andrea De Cesaris in the Coloni, who almost crashes into the side of the Lotus. Well, De Cesaris, bit of a nasty one there. And De Cesaris is not really paying much attention because Senna is just behind him there. And Senna should really have been given a bit of a clean path to come through. De Cesaris is going to try and head to the pit lane with this engine problem. Surely they don't think they can fix it in the pit lane, do they? I've never seen that before, but De Cesaris is coming into the pits with the engine problem. Are they actually going to try and restart this? The car stops. Switch the engine off. They've given it a reboot. And do they genuinely think they're going to get this started again? He's essentially just taken a pit stop. A long pit stop, admittedly. 13.2, but off he goes. And De Cesaris, I think, might just be able to keep going. Well, he's out of the points. But certainly fun and games at Coloni here in Cleveland. So here's Nannini running in 3rd place behind the Ferraris. Berger is behind him, so clearly the split decisions there between the McLarens proved that the McLaren strategy was good, but Nannini's was actually better than Berger's. And Berger went 1 stop. Now Senna also went 1 stop, if you recall. And he's currently down in 5th place in the Porsche Williams. So there's Alboreto trying to get his move on Moreno. It's not going to happen. Well, Lotus have had a very difficult start to the season, haven't they? It's not quite been the race they wanted. Warwick is still looking good for a few points, but it's certainly not what they wanted. Obviously, in terms of championship points scored, you get 15 points for the race win, 12 for 2nd, then 10 for 3rd as Frentzen is lapped by one of the Ferraris, 8 points for 4th place, And then from 5th down to 10th, it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that is how the points are scored in Grand Prix racing in 1991, and probably beyond as well. So there's Schumacher. Having a good run ahead of Mansell, Nannini, Berger, Senna and Gugelmin. Modena still having a good run. Warwick, Hakkinen, Brundle. So there is Berger, just trying to stay out of harm's way as he laps one of the Benettons. And Nigel Mansell still having a very solid run in second place for Ferrari. This is exactly the tonic that the Maranello squad needed. They had all sorts of difficulties last year, and they had more bad luck, I think, than any other team in the paddock. And it was one of the reasons that Alain Prost threw his toys out of the pram and said, this isn't good enough, and Warwick spins in the Lotus! Warwick spins right in front of Mika Hakkinen and somehow avoids contact. Right, Schumacher's coming in for his second stop. Now this is where the race can be won and lost for the Ferrari team. Mansell is going to have a second pit stop as well, don't forget. But that's going to promote Nigel Mansell to the lead of this Grand Prix for the moment. So Schumacher will come out in third position, I would think, just in front of Berger. He might actually be joined behind him. This is going to be tight for Berger and for Schumacher. But now Schumacher can get up to speed. Berger's come across the line. But who gets out first? Is Schumacher going to beat Berger out of the pits? Yes, he is. Just beat him out. Now that's critical for Schumacher and for Ferrari. That'll be a slight headache for Dave Goddard, team principal of the McLaren team. That's not gone well at all. As Nannini, nearly trips over somebody he's trying to lap. Now, who is that? It was the Tyrrell. That's Frentzen. Been a very difficult race for Heinz-Harald Frentzen this time. As Mansell continues to lead. Oh, he's getting very close to Roberto Moreno as he laps the Coloni. But Mansell's now trying to put his head down and get away from Alessandro Nannini, who obviously has his own pit stop coming up soon. There's 20 cars still running this race. Irvine out, Barbazza also. Prost, Fernandez, Alesi and Piquet all out of the race as well. But on that 45 out of 100, 44 laps completed, Nigel Mansell is your race leader. Nannini second, Schumacher is third after his pit stop, Berger, and then Senna. Fascinating battles going on so far as they run through on the far side and onto the main straight. Now here's Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver, up to the chicane. To the right, into the left. And so far so good for Leighton House. They look like they're on for some points if Suzuki can just keep it going. But it's all going to depend on how this middle of the top 10 battle shakes out with Gugelmin, with Modena, with Hakkinen, with Warwick, with Brundle. I have to say, fair play, as Gugelmin is going to attack Senna. Brazilian versus Brazilian. Is this going to be good enough? It is! So Gugelmin has got past Senna. The Lolas are having a sensational run here at Cleveland. This is an amazing performance from them in their second full season. They've obviously built cars for other teams, but they are finally building their own team and building their own car as Boutsen gets out of the way and lets the Ferrari lap him. A very tough day at the office for Thierry Boutsen so far. It's going to be a lot of head scratching at the end of this one as Mansell continues in front of Nannini by 6 seconds and ahead of Schumacher by 10 seconds. But Mansell still needs to make a pit stop for the second time, so this is all academic as far as the British driver is concerned. Here's Berger, and he's dueling wheel-to-wheel with the Benetton, and that's to lap it. Blundell didn't exactly give him any favours there. So Berger is obviously having to be very brave on the brakes. And Alessandro Nannini running in second place, just 6 seconds back from Nigel Mansell's Ferrari. I'm fairly sure he's got to make another pit stop too. So the way this is all going to play out, Berger is actually going to end up in second. And I think Senna is actually going to end up in third once the musical chairs stop. So Mansell and Nannini are going to have to do their best to try and catch and pass Senna on the road. So this is not going to be easy for them. Into the pits comes Wendlinger. So Wendlinger in the Jordan, the man who won the pre-qualifying race earlier in the weekend. So this is obviously going to be a tough test for the Austrian and the new Jordan team. They have a German headquarters, of course, despite the fact that their original base was at Silverstone. A lot of German money has come into this Jordan racing team. 12.5 seconds. Oh, whoa! Dear, oh dear. Almost took out the legs of the mechanic standing waiting in front of them. So Mansell, 6 seconds clear of Nannini. And Gugelmin is now in the pits. Now that is on schedule for the Lola team. And they're going to drop behind Senna, as I assumed they would. So Modena is going to be ahead of Hakkinen, Gugelmin, and Brundle. I don't think Brundle's going to overtake Gugelmin. So Gugelmin should rejoin in 8th position. But that's going to put the Lolas both in the points and both permanently about. There's a car in trouble! Don't tell me that's one of the Ferraris! Up to the straight, is it a Ferrari in trouble? I think it's a Ferrari in trouble. Is that Mansell? Is that the race leader, Nigel Mansell? It is as well. I don't believe it. Nigel Mansell, smoke billowing out of the Ferrari. I thought this was all put to bed. I thought the bad luck from 1990 was done. Nannini overtakes Mansell to go into the lead. And it's an engine failure. Nigel Mansell and Ferrari, they did a lot of work over the winter. Oh my goodness. The car is now ablaze. Well, Nigel Mansell, he was not destined to be the winner of the two Ferraris, I don't think, because he still had another pit stop to take. But after the frustrations and anger that came through last year, they said they have fixed the car this year. It's a much better operation. It's a much better outfit. That it is. But reliability is still a big issue at Ferrari, it seems. And Nigel Mansell does not quite go half distance. Well, he's certainly still able to win. He's certainly still motivated to win. And he has the ability as a driver to win. But I'm afraid, for Nigel Mansell and Ferrari, it is game over. Well, bitter disappointment then for the British driver, based on the Isle of Man and originally born in Birmingham. But I'm afraid Nigel Mansell is out of the US Grand Prix of 1991. So that puts Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren in the lead of the race, but he still has to make a pit stop. So Schumacher, in fact, Nannini's coming in now. So this is going to put Schumacher in the Ferrari back in the lead of the race once more. So there goes Nannini into the pits for the McLaren team. And it's Ferrari leading for Schumacher. Berger goes through into second. Senna should go through into third. And that is, well, depending on what Nannini can do out on track, that could be how it ends. Because Nannini is really going to have to work hard to close up on Senna. Senna's got good lap time pace. So too has Berger. But it's interesting that the McLaren's tyres are able to go just a little bit further than the Porsche Williams tyres. There goes Nannini out of the pits. And he rejoins behind Modena. So Modena in the Lola. Now, Nannini's going to try and make his way back through, which he's done quite quickly, actually. So no problems there for Modena to get back past Nannini. Into the pits comes the Lotus. Now that looks like Alboreto coming in. So Alboreto comes into the pits for a scheduled stop. And that's going to drop the Lotus driver out of the pits, out of the points, sorry, for the moment. Lotus having a very frustrating day back into the 1991 Grand Prix season. But there is Senna in the Porsche Williams. Third position for him at the moment. It's a good start for the Porsche Williams union. Still got a long way to go. Oh, and there goes the Benetton. And it's a spin for Mark Blundell, right in front of Senna. And Modena has come into the pits, so that's on schedule. He'll probably rejoin behind Martin Brundle, I would have said. So at least Blundell is able to keep going. Alboreto almost trips over him on the way out. I want to see that again, actually, because Katayama was there battling away. Alboreto was coming out of the pits and Blundell was trying to spin turn the car. So what happened? There's Katayama. There's Alboreto coming out of the pits. And somehow Blundell just chops across them. So it was very close indeed. Now we've got three cars trying to go for the same bit of racetrack. They've got to sort themselves out. And oh, I think Nannini getting held up there by the Leighton House. So that was quite close. Schumacher taking the lead then after the pit stops. 7 seconds in front of Berger. And Nannini again just having to go the long way round Katayama. who, I have to say, it's a harsh thing to say about anybody, but Katayama is proving to be a bit of a mobile roadblock at the moment. That's what he did in pre-qualifying, and he's doing it again here in the Grand Prix. Berger, though, second place for McLaren. Oh, trying to get the move done on Warwick, and Warwick actually drops it. I didn't know if there was any slight contact between the two, maybe. I didn't think so. I think that might have been just Warwick running wide on his own, actually. But it's a very frustrating day for the Lotus team. Warwick is in 13th. Alboreto is down at about 17th, I think, after his pit stop. So Lotus definitely having a bit of a head-scratching session, no doubt, after this one. Gujamin trying to deal with the Coloni, and he's got through. So Gujamin is 6th, and Modena is 8th. So the Lolas are looking good for a double points finish here. As we watch Michael Schumacher making his run to the first corner once again, 8.6 seconds ahead of Berger in the McLaren and Senna in the Porsche Williams from Nannini, Hakkinen, Gujamin, Brundle, Modena, Suzuki and Frentzen. So you could say that the three of the four major players in this race, Prost, Piquet and Mansell, all out of this race. And it looks like it's their counterpart, Ayrton Senna, the other man who duelled for the world title with them in 1986, who is currently running in 3rd place behind the new boy, Michael Schumacher, and the man who's finally getting the chance to show his potential, Gerhard Berger. He had a miserable year last year by all accounts. He spent more time in the steward's office than he did on the podium. There's Michele Alboreto in the Lotus, just having a little bit of a hiccup there on the far side of the course. But he is getting the car back up to speed again as he runs through. Very close to the pit wall, but he's able to keep the car running on the straight and narrow. And the Lotus team really could use a little bit of an inject of aerodynamics or just general balance. The car just looks a little bit wayward at the moment. So there's Berger ahead of Senna, Nannini, Hakkinen, Gujamin, Brundle, Modena and Suzuki. And then it's Frentzen in P10 from Patrese, Warwick, Boutsen and Alboreto. And then Wendlinger is in 15th position, the man who won the pre-qualifying event. But obviously the Jordan has a much tougher car on long race strategy of 100 laps around this circuit than it does on 50 laps in pre-qualifying. As Senna is going to lap his teammate Boutsen. There was a little bit of a miscommunication there because Boutsen was trying to get out of the way and Senna hesitated in doing so to make the overtaking move. But so far, the two Porsche Williams cars have good prospect of points. Senna running in 3rd position in front of Thierry Boutsen. Was that a slight chop out in the engine on the way through the chicane for Senna? Sincerely hope not. The Porsche Williams is going well. 3rd position. Here's Nannini diving through on the inside of the Jordan. And that is Nannini in the McLaren, looking good for a chance to catch up to Ayrton Senna's Porsche Williams. But Schumacher in the Ferrari, just ticking on the laps, one by one, just hoping against hope that Gerhard Berger's McLaren is not going to be able to catch him, and Hakkinen loses it! Hakkinen spins in the Brabham. So I'm afraid that's Mika Hakkinen losing it in the Brabham. He was so lucky when he came back on the road there. He almost took out Gujamin. Goodness me, Mika Hakkinen running the gauntlet on his return. We go through the chicane, and Senna again sounded a little bit there like there was a slight issue with the engine, having a bit of a misfire as he came down through the gears. Well, that would be I'm hoping that's something that Senna, he's had to deal with that kind of thing in the past before. And he's one of the few drivers that can drive around the deficiencies of a car. And Suzuki having a very solid race there in 9th position. Having a good run behind Modena. Oh, he's having a problem. Suzuki's breaking down, I'm afraid. So it looks like it's game over for the Leighton House. He's got a gearbox failure. So the gearbox has seized in the Leighton House. And that is no points then for Aguri Suzuki today. He's out of the race. That's a shame for the Leighton House team. They had a relatively good charge forward there. And Suzuki had driven very well in this one. So a shame that he's not going to be able to pick up any points for it. But there is the Ferrari. Still ticking over for Scuderia Nike Ferrari. As Modena tries to get through on Martin Brundle. And that is 4th position. Senna is slowing! Senna is slowing! There was a gearbox problem developing. I wasn't hearing things. Senna did have a gearbox problem developing. Oh, goodness me. Now all 4 of the big guns from this race are out of it. Prost was out. Then Piquet was out. Then Mansell was out. And now Senna is out too. So Porsche Williams are not going to get the podium that they deserved. And it's long faces at Porsche, because it's not just the Williams that's off the pace, it's the Benetton that's off the pace as well. There is Brundle, dueling away with his teammate Mark Blundell. Although Blundell is a lap adrift. But that's going to promote Brundle up into 7th place. It puts Frentzen in the Tyrrell up to 8th. Tracy in the Ligier will go back up to 9th. And Derek Warwick in the Lotus will go to 10th. So this is a good strategic battle for the Benettons. They can run together in formation. And they can actually acquire a lot of data. They can get a lot of aerodynamic work sorted out here. And someone else is in trouble behind Nannini. Someone else is in trouble. There was a car on fire there. A big, big problem. But the Benettons are running side by side. I couldn't see who it was. It's Boutsen! The second Williams. Within a lap and a half of each other, they hit trouble. So a lot of work still to do then at Porsche Williams. They were talking a big game before the season. Porsche said, we can win with Williams. Well, maybe they can, but certainly not at the start of 1991 they can't. Not in the US Grand Prix they can't. So, disaster. Well, we've lost both the Williams cars then in the space of about 90 seconds. That's a real shame, but that does kind of give you an idea of the work that needs to be done then at the Williams team. They've got a car that can run at the front end of the field. They've certainly got that. Just needs to go the distance. But then you could also say that about the Ferrari, because Mansell was not able to get to the end of the race. And still the Benettons are, well, I'm not entirely sure what they're up to, but they're certainly having a bit of fun up in front of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari, the number 15 car. So Schumacher is just trying to count the laps down now. He's got 40 laps to go before this race is over. We're beyond half distance. Berger's in second, Nannini's third. We've lost some major players from this race. We've lost the big 4, as they are known. Piquet, Prost, Senna and Mansell. We also lost the vice-champion last year, Jean Alesi. He only went out on lap 3, unbelievably, in the Tyrrell. And we've lost a fair few of the other competitors that have put on a decent show in the last 12 months of racing. But certainly some big problems. Berger in second place in the McLaren, ahead of his teammate Alessandro Nannini. There are the retirements. Boutsen, Senna, Suzuki, Mansell, Irvine, Barbazza, Prost, Fernandez, Alesi and Nelson Piquet. And what is Blundell doing? Well, clearly their team manager, who is known as Last Lap Lucy, will obviously know exactly what is going on there for the Benetton team. This is clearly data acquisition, isn't it, for the two cars? They're just trying to get a little bit more knowledge ahead of the next race of the championship in Brazil. What this does mean, though, is that we've got the Lolas of Gugelmin and Modena in 4th and 6th positions. This is an amazing run for team boss Tom Cairns, who really is putting on a great show for the Lola team. First race of the season, a lot of data from the IndyCar brigade when they come racing here. So Gugelmin and Modena have got the secrets of the trade ironed out flat, and they're running 4th and 6th at the moment. So Mark Blundell just slipstreaming alongside Martin Brundle, his teammate. And then he bails out at the last minute, but he almost hits his teammate. He's got to be careful that he doesn't run into trouble here. There's a long way still to go in this race, another 38 laps to complete. And that isn't going to take too long, because obviously it's less than a minute for the lap. But still, a lot of hard work to come. So the battles still rage around this Cleveland circuit. Schumacher, Berger, Nannini, Gugelmin and Hakkinen is your top 5. The reigning world champion for Brabham is there in P5, and that's Alboreto! Well, that's one half of the Lotus team out. So Michele Alboreto in the Renault team, or the Lotus team I should say, with Renault engines. That's a very disappointing end to the race then for Michele Alboreto. The car's now very much going back to the sort of the vintage green, and they've struggled to put a commercial deal together for this year. They finally did a deal with Castrol. But the Lotus Renault team, you kind of get the impression that they've ended up with the two drivers they didn't really want to sign. They've got a lot of experience in that car, but Warwick and Alboreto are not exactly in the twilight of their career, but they're not really at the start of it either. Schumacher still leads in the Ferrari, the 22-year-old German for the Ferrari squad ahead of Gerhard Berger and Alessandro Nannini, the McLaren teammates. If it ends like this, then McLaren are going to be leading the Constructors' Championship by 7 points to Ferrari. And the Benettons are causing a bit of a headache to Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari at the moment. This is a fascinating duel that continues to play out here. Still, Mark Blundell hustles behind his teammate Martin Brundle as the Benetton drivers are urging each other further forward. But it's a good start to the year. It is still a good start to the year for Ferrari. I was going to say it's a brilliant start, but then they have had one car retire, but they've got good data. Mansell was leading when he retired, and Schumacher is currently leading now. The McLarens second and third. Then you've got the Lolas of Gugelmin and Modena in fourth and sixth. Hakkinen's Brabham is currently P5, then Brundle in the Benetton. Frentzen in the Tyrrell is eighth. Patrese Ligier is in ninth. Oh, Modena! Scrapes along the wall. You've got to be careful not to do that too often. You start dropping the car, it becomes very difficult to control, but then obviously the walls are very close here at the Lakefront Airport. Mind you, there's one man who knows about fine-lining it as close to the wall as possible without actually hitting it, and that's Ayrton Senna, who at the Dallas Grand Prix in 1984 was so convinced that the wall had actually moved when he crashed into it that he told the team they thought it was a little bit of a numpty. They went and found out where the car was on the circuit, and they found that it had indeed moved. So Berger in behind Patrese in the sole remaining Ligier. And Berger is 16.6 seconds back from Schumacher at the moment. These laps are ticking off quite rapidly now. We're on lap 66. There's not a lot of corners to negotiate, not a lot of circuit to negotiate either, which makes this a very interesting test for the teams and drivers. And there is Schumacher trying to lap Martin Brundle, and Brundle isn't exactly helping him out. Down to the braking zone. Can he dive through? Well, Blundell nearly dives through. Schumacher's got him. That's no problem at all for him. So now Schumacher is actually 2 laps ahead of Mark Blundell and 1 lap ahead of Martin Brundle. So the McLarens are second and third for Gerhard Berger and Alessandro Nannini at the moment. If you've just joined us, it's been a thrilling battle here in Cleveland for the US Grand Prix. Right from the start, we knew we were going to have some drama. Nelson Piquet dropping out on lap 2 in the Arrows BMW. Then Jean Alesi from P3 after an epic start had an engine failure in the Red Bull Tyrrell Honda. And then we had a few drivers drop out here, there and everywhere, but the big names all fell by the wayside. Prost ended up having a loose wheel and he spun off the circuit. Nigel Mansell had an engine failure and Ayrton Senna had a gearbox selection problem in the Porsche Williams. So big difficulties there for the big four, along with the likes of Alesi and Piquet. But certainly for the moment, the 22-year-old German sensation Michael Schumacher, who took the lead away from Gerhard Berger on lap 1, has been steadily just eking out the lead. He hasn't led the whole way. He even spun off at one stage in the Grand Prix, would you believe? He actually spun off when he was trying to overtake Riccardo Patrese in the early stages. Before Patrese had his own big his big electronics problem, which pitched him into a spin, heading backwards down the pit lane entry, would you believe, with an electrical failure. And he was able to get the car moving enough so that he could get the car to reset in pit road. So Schumacher is 17 seconds clear of Gerhard Berger and Alessandro Nannini in the 2 McLarens. Nannini's actually catching Berger a little bit. Gugelmin is P4, Hakkinen is P5, and Modena is P6. This is a great race for the Lola team. 4th and 6th at the moment. Under the old point system, they'd be looking at 4 points. They're looking at that and more just from Stefano Modena alone. So Schumacher still having a very solid race out in the lead. It's Ferrari, McLaren, McLaren, Lola, Brabham, Lola at the moment. And then it's the Benetton of Brundle, the Tyrrell of Frentzen, the Ligier of Patrese, and the Lotus of Warwick, with Carl Wendlinger in the Jordan just one place away from scoring a championship point on the team's debut. Now that would be pretty spectacular. Moreno's in 12th, Katayama is 13th, then it's De Cesaris, Blundell, who is 2 laps down, having had a problem on the opening lap. And that's Mika Hakkinen. Hakkinen's slowing! Oh, the Brabham's out! Mika Hakkinen is out of the US Grand Prix. The reigning world champion is going no further, and that's a suspension failure. Well, I'm afraid neither Brabham is going to make it to the end of the race then. No points for the Brabham team. But at least they've got a reasonably solid car, as Brundle and Blundell, the 2 Benetton teammates, are still nearly tripping over each other. So they've got to be very careful about this kind of thing. So they work their way through the chicane. But Brundle and Blundell are hoping for a much stronger continuation to the season when the teams get to Brazil. Certainly Brundle looking good for a 6th place finish at least now. But with Hakkinen out of the race, that promotes Jordan into the points and their first Grand Prix. So that's a really good positive start for them. Look again, Blundell. They're doing some aerodynamic training or whatever they are while the race is still going on. So Benetton's still very much tactically gathering some data. Looks like their new team principal, who's known by everyone in the paddock as Last Lap Lucy. She's obviously doing a very good job instructing her drivers to take it nice and steady down there in the pit lane, but also to gather and acquire as much data as is possible. De Cesaris gets out of the way then. No, he doesn't. De Cesaris doesn't get out of the way of Michael Schumacher, and Schumacher is absolutely livid. I think he shook his fist there at De Cesaris as he came up alongside him there. And obviously De Cesaris refusing to let the Ferrari go by. Well, clearly there's a man who knows he's never going to drive for the Scuderia at any point in his career. Schumacher gets through and actually shakes his fist at De Cesaris as he goes by. So a fascinating situation for all of the contenders here as Nannini runs in 3rd place still in the McLaren, and he is coming up to lap Derek Warwick in the Lotus. There's Frentzen up to P7 ahead of Patrese. And now we're watching Warwick be lapped by Nannini's McLaren, but he's in 9th position ahead of the Jordan of Carl Wendlinger, who is currently looking at a 10th place finish and a first point for Jordan. Moreno is 11th for Coloni, and Katayama in the Leighton House, and then it's De Cesaris in the Coloni, and Blundell in the Benetton, and that's it. There's nobody else running. Hakkinen out of the race, of course, in the Brabham a short while ago. 29 laps to go, are about to become 28 laps to go. And Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren. Still having a very solid race at the moment, the McLaren team. There's Brundle, heading for the pits by the look of it. Yeah, he's got an electrical issue. Now that's going to promote the Tyrrell team up into the top 6. So problems at Benetton then. And for Martin Brundle, fortunately he can make it back to the pits. But certainly for Martin Brundle and the Benetton team, that is not in the script. Patrese is actually catching Frentzen as well, so looks like it could be Tyrrell versus Ligier very shortly indeed for 6th position. But look at that, you've got the Lolas of Gugelmin and Modena now in 4th and 5th position thanks to Hakkinen's retirement. That is baffling. I mean, the understanding, of course, has got to come from the fact that Lola, who obviously build cars in IndyCar for many of the top teams in the American Championship, they've got a lot of data around this place, so they know what this circuit is like compared to a lot of the other teams. Reynard were obviously fairly quick as well in pre-qualifying initially, despite having mechanical problems with the Renault engines, so they clearly know the circuit as well. So anybody with an American involvement clearly knows this circuit and its secrets quite well. I mean, the Lolas aren't really able to get away from anybody they're dealing with. Gugelmin and Modena are fairly solid in 4th and 5th. They're certainly not going to catch up to the likes of Ferrari or the McLarens, as Schumacher's having more fun and games, this time being sat behind the widest man in Formula 1. That is Ukyo Katayama, of course. I don't mean to say that in a derogatory sense, but certainly in a tactical sense. Katayama has been very hard to overtake. Now, check out how close Nannini has got to Gerhard Berger in the last few laps. Nannini is actually having a push to go for second place here on his teammate Gerhard Berger. Now, that could be an interesting end to the Grand Prix if the McLarens decide to battle with each other for the final 25 laps, and it looks like they're going to. Nannini is taking on Gerhard Berger. Oh, and Moreno's gone off the road in the Colony and spins it. It's a full 360-degree pirouette, and he rejoins on the circuit, able to keep going again. So, a bit of a kamikaze moment there for Roberto Moreno. And I can tell you, actually, after the pit stop that he had earlier, Martin Brundle has actually rejoined in the Benetton in 10th position. So it looks like the Benetton team is only going to get 1 point from the first race of the 20 race calendar. It's 16 race calendar. What am I talking about? 16 races. There were proposed 20 races, but they decided to stick with the original plan of 16. So Martin Brundle working his way through. 10th position. Only 1 point so far for the Benetton team. Obviously, they're going to need to go back to the drawing board ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix next time out. Round 2 of the 1991 Championship. Michael Schumacher, 22 seconds now ahead of the McLarens of Berger and Nannini. So there's a very tricky situation there for the McLarens because Nannini is all over the back of his McLaren teammate Gerhard Berger. Here we go. Nannini's through. Nannini's got through past Berger. No, he's not. My apologies. So Berger is still there in second. Nannini is still there in third. Nannini just watching a brief. Now, what sort of tactics are they going to have to employ here at McLaren? Because McLaren has a history of no team orders. They've never employed team orders at McLaren. And I'm fairly aware of the fact that team principal Dave Goddard has spoken out about his tactics in McLaren. They're going to be very similar to Ron Dennis. He's very much said, you know, our drivers race. They are racing drivers. That's what they're paid to do. As long as they don't take each other out, they are free to race. And it wouldn't at all surprise me if Nannini is going to be allowed to go for Berger and try and make the overtake. Interestingly, he's done it! Nannini's got through. We've been so busy watching Schumacher, it's come up on my timing screen that Nannini's ahead of Berger. So he's got through. There is the proof. He got through in the chicane. So Nannini is up into second place then, past Berger. So Alessandro Nannini, who was a bit of a surprise call-up for the McLaren team for 1991, it had to be said. But Goddard was absolutely adamant he was going to bring Nannini into the team. When Senna departed, he said, if I've got to replace Ayrton Senna, and nobody wants to replace Ayrton Senna, but if you have to, Nannini is a very solid prospect for the future, and I think we've got big designs on some victories for Nannini in the future. And it turns out that Dave Goddard knew something we didn't. So a fabulous run then for the McLarens, second and third place at the moment. Modena is now ahead of Gugelmin, I've noticed, so Gugelmin must have had an issue somewhere. And they've swapped positions. Modena is in fourth, Gugelmin is fifth, and up in sixth place is the Tyrrell of Frentzen, who has made a bit of a comeback charge in the latter stages of racing. Was that Berger about to lose track position to the Lotus of Derek Warwick? Because if that's the case, then there's a chance that the McLaren may have a difficulty of some kind developing. Because Nannini has not only got by, he's now nearly 2 seconds ahead of Berger. But anyway, well, it might be down to the fact... Oh, Nannini almost cannoning straight into the back of the Ligier of Riccardo Patrese. That was close. That was mighty close for Nannini. It's not the first time that's happened in this race when he's come up on a back marker as well. So Berger is still there right behind his teammate Nannini, and he's able to get the slipstream from him, and Berger repasses the Renault-powered Lotus of Derek Warwick. But clearly for a moment there, Berger was adjusting some kind of setting or whatever it was, because he was unlapped by Derek Warwick, but now he has got back past him again and is going to be hunting down Alessandro Nannini once again. Up to the chicane. In through the right and in through the left as Michael Schumacher closes up on Roberto Moreno in the Colony, who is just 1 place away from a championship point. So Tyrrell are looking likely to get 5 points here. And a second lap in a row as Nannini almost cannons into the back of Patrese. And now that could put Nannini's second place under threat from Berger. He doesn't go through. But Berger was definitely thinking about the overtake. So Nannini almost hits the back of Patrase's Ligier twice in as many laps. But Berger is third behind him. Then Modena and Gugelmin, the two Lolas. And they're separated by about 2 seconds. Then Frensen's Tyrrell. Tyrrell looking for 5 points from this first race of the season. Then Patrese in the Ligier, provided that a McLaren doesn't hurtle into the back of his rear wing. Warwick and the Lotus team are looking at 3 points. Wendlinger in the Jordan, they're looking for 2 points from their first race of the season, which is very good indeed. And then Brundle, 10th position, looking good for 1 point for the Benetton team. As Michael Schumacher comes across the line and now has 20 laps to go. And for the 3rd lap in a row, Patrese causing a massive headache for Nannini. Oh dear. Well, Riccardo Patrese, who probably didn't want to be all the way down in 7th place in Ligier, when he could have been in his old Williams mount, battling for the podium. But Patrese is not particularly happy mixing it up with the McLarens who are trying to lap him. Nannini surely is going to make the bid this time, and he does. So this time Nannini gets through past Patrase's Ligier. And as you can see, he's 4 seconds back from Frentzen and about 1.5 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick. So Patrese clearly under some pressure at the moment. As we ride on board with the Red Bull Tyrrell of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who has been quietly getting on with this on a heavy fuel strategy. Just ticking over lap after lap, not overdriving the car, not succumbing to the pressure of the drivers around him, and has found himself in the top 6. So good work from Frentzen. He's very much gone for the slow burn approach. His teammate Alesi went very quickly. And unfortunately, the engine went pop on lap 3. I wonder if that was Alesi just over-revving the engine slightly. And unfortunately, it cost him an engine failure because clearly the Honda engine is reliable in the Tyrrell because Frensen's been able to keep it going all the way through this race so far. A little bit of a lock-up there from Moreno. Schumacher in the Ferrari, still going strong. Berger in 3rd position behind his teammate Alessandro Nannini. There's about 2.4 seconds between them, and there is Stefano Modena. What an amazing race this is turning into for Stefano Modena and the Lola team. They are 4th and 5th. Team boss Tom Cairns must be having kittens. He took over the Lola team in the hope that they would be able to score a point or two in 1991, and here they are looking at a whopping 14. What an astonishing run this is from the Lola team. I don't think they've ever scored so much as 14 points in their entire career. And it looks like they're going to get it in one race, in 4th and 5th position for Modena and Gugelmin. There's Nannini, 2nd position for the McLaren. And he's closing up on Frentzen to lap the Tyrrell driver. Now, hopefully, Frentzen isn't going to give Nannini quite as big a headache as Patrese did. In fact, I'm looking in the background. Has Berger even lapped Patrese yet? I'm not sure he has. And look at that. Frentzen doing exactly the right thing. Moves over and lets Nannini go. Very sensible. Frentzen obviously focusing on his own race. He just wants to get some points. So Frentzen deciding not to be silly with it. He wants the car to come home. As does his team boss, Sam Hall, of course. Looking after things under the watchful gaze of Ken Tyrrell. Stefano Modena now lapping Wendlinger. That's something I never thought I'd say in this race. I thought they'd be dueling with each other wheel to wheel. Never mind the Lola being a lap ahead of the new Jordan. And there is Ukyo Katayama trying to get the Leighton House into the points. They're currently in 12th position. This all-new Japanese approach, rather than the British March team getting involved, has definitely not quite started the way they thought it would. But apparently, if Honda are going to have a controlling interest in Leighton House, then their biggest rivals in motorsport are Toyota. And apparently, the Toyota outfit that are currently very much involved with the Tom's sports car outfit have been having a look at Formula One of late. Now, there's an interesting rivalry. Honda versus Toyota in Formula One. That could be very interesting heading into 1992. Schumacher leads Nannini and Berger, then Modena and Gugelmin, Frentzen in the Tyrrell, Patrese in the Ligier, Warwick in the Lotus, Wendlinger in the Jordan, and Martin Brundle in the Benetton. Only 4 other cars are still running. Moreno's Coloni, Katayama in the Leighton House, Blundell in the Benetton, and Andrea De Cesaris in the Coloni. Every other car, all other 12 drivers in this race have all retired at various points. Both Brabhams, Lacey's Tyrrell, both Arrows cars. We've lost Irvine. We've also lost Mansell, Senna and Boutsen, so the 2 Williams cars. We lost the Lacey in the Tyrrell as well. And we lost Alboreto and Barbazza. So fascinating duels so far up at the front end of the field. Has seen several drivers challenge Schumacher and the Ferrari. But Schumacher's just been looking after this car ever so steadily. He's keeping it in check. There is Alessandro Nannini. For me, he's the driver of the race, actually. As much as I want to praise Schumacher for doing the job he's done at Ferrari, I think a lot of expectation was on his shoulders. But certainly Nannini has just been getting on with it very calmly, not overdriving the car as we've seen from him in the past. But he really has stepped up to the plate since getting the endorsement from McLaren. He's actually outdriven his teammate Gerhard Berger in the Grand Prix today. Berger is slipping back a little while. He's got the strategy slightly wrong, if you ask me. He went for the one-stop strategy rather than the two-stop, which Nannini has actually made work out in his favour, because Berger's obviously got much older tyres in that McLaren than Nannini has. But he's definitely got a much better rhythm in the car, Alessandro Nannini, than his Austrian teammate. So that could be a very interesting development as the years continue on for Nannini at the McLaren team. Schumacher just ticking over at the head of the pack, and the Ferrari outfit, which has an incredible group of people behind it. Obviously Luca de Montezemolo letting race manager at the Ferrari team Chris Cavani keep control of things, with Nigel Mansell and Michael Schumacher at the helm. Mansell was actually leading when the engine went bang, but interestingly, the very same car with the very same engine, Mansell let it overheat. Schumacher has kept it going all the way to lap 87 thus far. So maybe there's just something in the way that Schumacher drives compared to the way that Mansell drives. That means he's gelling well with this Ferrari, whereas Mansell has never really managed to get on top of the Ferrari over the course of an entire season. He's had occasional races having a good run with it. And there are rumours that at the end of 1991, if he hasn't really mounted a title attack, there won't be any more. Gugelmin spins it! Oh, right in front of Schumacher's Ferrari, and almost gets clouted by one of the Colonis. Goodness me. So Gugelmin goes a lap down. That isn't quite how Schumacher was intending to lap him, though. Oh, scary moment for Mauricio Gugelmin. And that could have been a very nasty accident. That could have been the end of the Grand Prix for Schumacher right there. But he reacted to it very smartly indeed. So Nannini is in front of Gerhard Berger by 10 seconds now. He's just driven away from his Austrian teammate. And now we've got a great battle brewing up in front. This is Katayama versus Blundell. This is for 12th place. Blundell trying to get through past the Leighton House as Nannini is trying to lap them. And De Cesaris is right behind them. And that's, well, Blundell had to let Nannini go. But certainly Katayama didn't need to let Nannini go just then. But look, De Cesaris is just behind Blundell as well. So there is a battle going on all the way through this field. Oh, and that's Wendlinger! Wendlinger, who was in 9th position for the Jordan team, has just spun off in front of Brundle. In fact, he dropped back behind Martin Brundle a little earlier on, but Wendlinger has spun it while running in 10th position, in the points-paying position. Well, that is devastating bad luck for Karl Wendlinger. It's the first mistake he's made all weekend, unfortunately for the Austrian. And Moreno has already gone through, look, in the Coloni into 10th position to what will possibly be the first point of 1991 for Coloni Honda. Wendlinger's down to 11th. He's got to try and bring it back on in front of the Blundell, De Cesaris and Katayama battle. Interestingly, Katayama's just dropped to the back of the field. I'm not quite sure how he did that. But certainly Katayama has fallen back to the tail of the field now. So it looks like there's not going to be any points at all for Leighton House. And it doesn't look like there's going to be a point for Jordan unless somebody in the top 10 drops out at the end of the race. And Michael Schumacher is just 10 and a bit laps from home now. It's been a great run for the Scuderia Nike Ferrari driver. It was definitely got the handle of this Ferrari even better than Nigel Mansell has. Mansell spent most of last year saying we've got mechanical problems with this car, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, we need an improvement in 1991. They've certainly made an improvement, but interestingly, Michael Schumacher has kept the car going all the way to the end of the race, and that's going to give Nigel Mansell quite a headache heading to the Brazilian Grand Prix. Meanwhile, that is Mark Blundell trying not to be lapped by Alessandro Nannini, I do believe. Or is that Brundle trying not to be lapped by Alessandro Nannini? Either way, the McLaren is struggling to overtake the Apple Benetton Porsche. But Schumacher is just guiding the car along nicely up in the front, taking it nice and tidy. It's a very flat surface, this. No major crests, just a few bumps and a few little shakes here and there around this airport-based circuit. It won't be back for the 1992 season. The conversations have already started as to a potential venue for the American Grand Prix next year. And there's all sorts of conversations. One person even wildly suggested we should go to Laguna Seca in California. Now that would be a bit brave. So Patrese having a solid run now. He had his chance to run at the podium earlier on, but the one-stop strategy really didn't work for the Ligier driver. As Berger is having a real struggle with his tyres now. And that's the Lotus closing up. That's Derek Warwick in the Lotus trying to get one back from Berger. He doesn't want to be lapped by the McLaren anymore. Has Berger got a problem developing, or is he just trying to take it easy before the end of the race? I would say it's probably the latter. But with nearly 8 laps to go, Berger is falling into the clutches of Stefano Modena to an extent. Modena is only a second and a bit behind Gerhard Berger now. Is the Lola going to get on the podium? Now that really would be a sensational end to the Grand Prix. So there is Schumacher, 8 laps to go. As he comes through, Roberto Moreno, the Brazilian, has got the Coloni up into 10th position now, thanks to Wendlinger's spin. And Moreno is 2 laps down. So still the driver's just trying to bring the car home. But this is Berger, and half a second behind us, we've got Stefano Modena in the Lola. Now this would be a fabulous opportunity for the Italian to get onto the podium to join his countryman Alessandro Nannini. There is Nannini, desperately trying not to end up in the airbox of one of the Benettons. He certainly very nearly ended up in the side pod there. As Michael Schumacher just ticks over another lap in the Ferrari. This is a boy you're going to hear a lot of in the future. Just 22 years of age, Michael Schumacher. Was born in 1969, only recently turned 22. He's having an absolutely fabulous run so far, the German star. Who I think it's very clear to see, after today, he is going to become the hottest property in Grand Prix racing. But Ferrari, if I know them, they're not going to let him go. Now here's Berger with the Lola of Stefano Modena right behind him. So Modena is going to put Berger under some pressure here. Can the McLarens hang on to the podium while Patrese is having a bit of a battle of his own? And this could be where Modena might be able to slip through into 3rd position past Berger. So there goes Berger. Oh, and Patrese doesn't help out the Lola at all, then gets out of the way. But that has held up Modena to the tune of about a second. So Modena has got to try and make up another second on Berger. He was right with him, but I'm afraid Patrese got in his way. And so Stefano Modena has got to try and gain back the time lost to get himself there, back into a chance of the podium. So it's a Ferrari and 2 McLarens on the podium. That would be a very nice sight after the year that those two teams had in 1990. Modena and Gugelmin looking at 4th and 5th, and then Frentzen in the Tyrrell very quietly and very maturely looking good for 5 points for the Tyrrell team. Then Patrese for Ligier, then Brundle for Benetton, then Warwick for Lotus, and then... Oh, that's Warwick! Just as I talk about Warwick, he spins. Now, can he keep it going? He has managed to do so. So he's about to be lapped for the 2nd time by the Ferrari. But boy, is he lucky. He almost threw away some points there for the Lotus team, did Derek Warwick, as Katayama's got a problem. Katayama's got a handling issue developing in that Leighton house. We saw him weaving from side to side, going down the back straight. And now we've got Wendlinger ahead of Blundell's ahead of Wendlinger. So Wendlinger and the Jordans having some difficulty. Oh, Wendlinger's out! Wendlinger's out! No points for Jordan. Oh, and that's why! He's tangled with the McLaren. Well, I think he had suspension failure before that when he tangled with Nannini. I want to see that again if we can. Did he already have a broken suspension? Yes, he did. He already had a broken rear suspension. So Nannini was very lucky that Wendlinger didn't take him out of the Grand Prix with just 4 laps to go. Goodness me. But I'm afraid for Jordan, it's Heartbreak Hotel that they need to check into tonight. Because Carl Wendlinger so nearly managed to come home in 9th place. Had problems earlier on, had a spin. And clearly it was a suspension that was in the process of breaking that has let Carl Wendlinger and the Jordan team down. What a shot. And that's Patrese! Patrese spins! Goodness me! These last couple of laps, everybody's really struggling to get these cars home. And that's going to put Warwick right onto the tail of Patrese. So Patrese is not safe in 8th position at all. Derek Warwick is right there. And Michael Schumacher nearly tripped over Katayama in all of that. Goodness me. So Derek Warwick and Riccardo Patrese are now going to have a terrific final couple of laps battle for 8th position behind Martin Brundle's Benetton. Moreno is still 10th. Blundell is still 11th. De Cesaris is still 12th ahead of Katayama. And now, obviously, as we know, Wendlinger is out of the race. The marshals are still clearing that car away. As De Cesaris is trying to catch up to that man, Mark Blundell, in the hope that he could still salvage 11th place. There's Mauricio Gugelmin in the Lola. He is the leading car of those that have been lapped. And he's in 5th position. There's Roberto Moreno. He's looking good for the final point. But there is the Ferrari and Michael Schumacher. We can see how Brundle is in comparison to Frentzen. Brundle is chipping away every now and then at Frentzen. Not quite sure why we were looking at Fabrizio Barbazza's Jordan. And I think it might be because Wendlinger's car is actually parked up fairly closely to his teammate's machine. But they'll be back to challenge again, no doubt, at the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos. Look at Modena. He's closed back up to Berger. And right behind him, a lap behind, that is Martin Brundle, I do believe, who is using Stefano Modena for slipstreaming purposes. Now, by his argument, he should be ahead of the Lola, because he had problems through the race, so he could unlap himself here, Martin Brundle. And this is all good data acquisition for next time out. Now, if Brundle causes a headache to Modena, that's not going to help Lola at all. But Modena, look, is right behind Berger. 3 laps to go for them. Because I don't think Schumacher's going to catch up past them. Here goes Modena, going for the move for 3rd position. Stefano Modena for the podium. Berger round the outside. No, you don't. Gerhard Berger hangs on to 3rd position for the time being. Modena's going to have to try again. 2 to go for Schumacher in the Ferrari. Surely this is going to be it now for the German. However, we've said these things before. We've said almost certainly now it's done and dusted. You never count your chickens before they hatch in the Grand Prix World Championship. We've had so many near misses and then so many victories snatched away with cruelty. But Schumacher is just taking it easy. He's nursing the car. He's not pushing any harder than he has to. As we watch Frentzen come towards us in P6. And that's why he is trying his hardest to get away, because Brundle is eating up the road to the Tyrrell in front of him. He wants to get 6th place. Brundle, of course, had an electrical problem earlier on. He was in P6 up until that point. He was actually in 5th between the 2 Lolas. So he knows he's got a car that can overtake Frentzen. He's just got to catch him, but he's going to run out of time, surely. There's Schumacher. So Schumacher running in 1st position. Into the last lap goes the Ferrari driver from Germany. And what a performance this has been from the youngster from Köppen in Germany. 22 years of age. He is the latest of the superstars in Formula 1. And not only has he come into the Ferrari team in the hope to galvanise them, he's actually been stronger than Mansell for a lot of this weekend. And he has put on a magnificent display. And the young German could actually captain Ferrari to their first world title since 1979, when 12 years ago, Jody Scheckter of South Africa gave Ferrari their last taste of glory. Maybe this young man, Michael Schumacher, is their next charge to become a Ferrari world champion. It's early days, but certainly in the US Grand Prix of 1991, it's Michael Schumacher. He wins for Ferrari, his first Grand Prix win for the Scuderia on his first attempt. An amazing run for Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. And it's going to be this man, the Italian stallion, as he is quickly being known, Alessandro Nannini for McLaren. What an amazing drive from this young Italian. Nannini comes through, second place for McLaren. And I think Modena's actually burnt out his tyres trying to keep up with Gerhard Berger. So it looks as though it's going to be Berger that will come through for third position. There's Frentzen coming home for sixth. Brundle is going to try and unlap himself. It's not going to happen. Gugelmin comes home for fifth. That means that Modena is guaranteed fourth. Berger gets the final step of the podium. Lola are fourth and fifth. Would you believe it? Such an amazing run from the Lola team. But this boy, Michael Schumacher, is the conqueror of all in the US Grand Prix. An amazing performance here in Cleveland. And the Ferrari driver is victorious. Nannini and Berger second and third for McLaren. Lola are fourth and fifth for Modena and Gugelmin. Frentzen in P6 from Brundle, Patrese, Warwick, and the final point going to Collodi and Roberto Moreno. The final finishers, Blundell, De Cesaris and Katayama. Wendlinger was classified as a finisher despite the fact that he ended up retiring with 8 laps to go. From Hakkinen retiring, Alboreto, Boutsen and Senna, Suzuki, Mansell, Irvine, Barbazza, Prost, Fernandez, Alesi and Piquet all out of the Grand Prix. And after a thrilling encounter of 100 laps around the Burke Lakefront Airport here at the Grand Prix of Cleveland, Ferrari have taken the victory after Gerhard Berger took the pole position. And the fastest lap? Who else but Michael Schumacher, incredibly just a 10th quicker than Alesi.
Well, how about that, ladies and gentlemen? Michael Schumacher and Ferrari have conquered all here in America, and it's a fascinating start to the season. McLaren are showing good, consistent pace. Lola have come from absolutely nowhere to score double points, but it looks as though Porsche need to work very closely with Williams and Benetton to get themselves further up the grid. There's a long way to go in 1991, and the second race of the championship will come from the Interlagos circuit in Brazil. From all of us here, though, we'll see you next time.